Chapter 126. The surroundings were pitch black, and the fallen leaves were silent. There was only a bonfire burning quietly, and the crackling of the dried branches brought about some sparks. The flames circled in the sky, then extinguished. Li Zhongjiu's team was resting here. Gu Man was lying on a rock, the black wind blowing, and the moonlight shining on his head. Suddenly, he seemed to smell blood in the air. He immediately got up, crawled on the rock, and stared in front of him. He took out the dagger from his chest, and stared in front of him. Outside of Wuxia city, it was necessary to bring a defensive weapon. After all, some meta beasts were not strong, but their skin was thick, and their defense was strong. If one did not use a weapon, it would be very difficult to break through their defense. This was not some cruel and bloodthirsty meta beast. It was a small black fox. This is a black crystal fox, Gu Man exclaimed. As someone who had rich experience in fighting in the wild, he was naturally familiar with black crystal foxes. If someone could catch this black crystal fox, it would be equivalent to owning a mansion in a first-tier city. It was a symbol of nobility and mystery. Why is this black crystal fox here? Black crystal foxes only liked to stay in their own caves and rarely came out. Moreover, the places they lived in usually had powerful spiritual creatures. If one could find a black crystal fox, it would be equivalent to finding a heavenly treasure. How could they not be rich? What's going on? It's a black crystal fox. Should we catch it? Li Gui also moved to Gu Man's side. Although his reaction was not as sharp as Gu Man's, he was still the captain of the guards. His intuition told him that something was wrong. When he moved closer to take a look, he also discovered that it was a black crystal fox. Look at what the black crystal fox is holding in its mouth. Gu Man pointed at the black crystal fox. The black crystal fox was holding something in its mouth. Gu Man had little experience in this area. Li Gui immediately saw what the black crystal fox was holding in its mouth. It's white jade crispy bamboo shoots. It has the effect of strengthening bones and tendons, as well as the effect of regenerating muscles. This is a rare spiritual medicine. Li Zhongjiu cried out in alarm. At this moment, the black crystal fox seemed to have found the right direction and leaped towards Li Zhongjiu. If the creature that had charged into Li Zhongjiu's carriage had been a snake or an aggressive meta beast, Li Gui and the others would have already taken action and captured the black crystal fox. However, this black crystal fox seemed to have come to deliver a treasure to them, so they didn't make a move. Instead, they carefully observed it. If Li Zhongjiu directly called for help, then they wouldn't hesitate to kill him. However, Li Zhongjiu's carriage was completely calm. Not long after, the black crystal fox emerged from the carriage and left the campsite. When Li Gui and Gu Man saw this scene, both of them revealed a trace of shock in each other's eyes. The black crystal fox is giving him a treasure? This is fucking amazing. He had probably never seen such a shocking scene in his entire life. They couldn't help but praise their young master's remarkable abilities. To think that the black crystal fox would actually deliver its treasures to him. Li Zhongjiu, who was in the carriage, looked at the black crystal fox. A trace of disbelief appeared in his eyes as he looked at the white jade crispy bamboo shoot in his hand. I didn't expect this white god food to have such an effect. It can communicate with all things. This is the true use of mental energy. It can't directly kill people. Although in his previous life, Li Zhongjiu had already become the evil lord, in this life, he had been reborn. His cultivation should have improved by leaps and bounds. However, this Li Zhongjiu had comprehended something that he hadn't comprehended in his previous life. He also had a deeper understanding of cultivation. Just now, Li Zhongjiu had only tried to release his mental energy to the black crystal fox. According to the description of the white god Fu, he had dispersed a summoning intent. However, after waiting for a long time, he didn't see any movement. Just when Li Zhongjiu thought that this thing was useless, the black crystal fox delivered its treasure to him. This saved Li Zhongjiu a lot of trouble. This is a good method. Just when Li Zhongjiu was excitedly trying to cultivate his white god Fu, in the Blackwater Forest, several figures were hurriedly moving forward. It was here just now. I clearly saw it. That black crystal fox really passed by here with the white jade crispy bamboo shoot in its mouth. One of them said. There was a strange symbol engraved on his clothes. If Li Zongjie was here, he would definitely recognize that this was the uniform of the Black Zen sect. The entire Black Zen sect was intercepted and killed. They either fled or scattered. Who would have thought that they would reappear in the Blackwater Forest? Trash, you can't even watch a fox. An angry voice scolded. However, this voice's accent wasn't very smooth. It shouldn't be someone from around here. Under the moonlight, one could see that this person had coarse curly hair, a high nose bridge and azure eyes. The handle of the scimitar in his hand was embedded with a few gems. This was the style of the Outlands. In the Shengyan dynasty, there was still a piece of land that had not been recovered. Due to various reasons, it was left behind. This piece of land was called the Outlands. The people in this Outlands were a mix of good and bad people, and it was filled with chaos. And these people from the Outlands definitely didn't come to the Shengyan dynasty with good intentions. The person from the Black Zen sect was scolded. His expression was obviously not good, but he didn't dare to say anything. At that moment, he could only blame the anger in his heart on the Black Crystal Fox. It was all the Black Crystal Fox's fault for disappearing too quickly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been scolded. These people from the Outlands were arrogant and despotic. If they were in a bad mood, they might just kill someone. Now that even the Black Zen sect's sect leader had to listen to them, they naturally had nothing to say. Moreover, these people from the Outlands were very strong. Suddenly, a black light flashed in front of him. The person from the Black Zen sect was shocked. There, I see it, the Black Crystal Fox. It's the Black Crystal Fox. The Black Crystal Fox's figure was running at top speed. However, this time, it couldn't escape this disaster. The Outlands expert with the treasured saber pulled out the long saber at his waist and swung it in front of him. Boom! The saber whistled and accurately chopped the Black Crystal Fox's foot. Immediately, a miserable cry was heard. The Black Crystal Fox's foot was directly chopped off. Blood dripped. It curled up in pain. In the next second, then he lifted the Black Crystal Fox with one hand. I want to see how this little thing with a broken leg can run now. The Outlands expert, Jin Yujun, said with a cruel smile on his face. It was as if he saw the Black Crystal Fox struggling in pain. The happier he was, the more excited he was. Chapter 127. The Black Crystal Fox was caught. The people from the Black Zen sect saw that the Black Crystal Fox's leg had been cut off, and cried out in alarm. Aya, this Black Crystal Fox is an expert at finding treasures. If its leg is cut off, how are we going to find the elixir? How are we going to lead the way? You said that if we find this thing, we can find the white jade crispy bamboo shoots. Now you're telling me that we can't find it? Are you playing with me? Jin Yujun shouted angrily. The people from the Black Zen sect patiently explained the situation to Jin Yujun. Finally, Jin Yujun frowned. It's so troublesome to find something. This little thing is already useless. If it's useless, then I'll just kill it. Jin Yujun sneered. This Black Crystal Fox was so weak that it could be easily slaughtered. How pitiful. Jin Yujun immediately threw the Black Crystal Fox into the sky with his left hand. Firstly, it was to satisfy his anger. Secondly, it was to let the people from the Black Zen sect know that he, Jin Yujun, was powerful. It was time to show them his power. This way, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly, and would know what it meant to be obedient. Just as Jin Yujun was about to pull out his blade, he realized that the Black Crystal Fox above his head had disappeared. It disappeared. Did it grow wings and fly away? Suddenly, Jin Yojuan's body felt a trace of vigilance. It was an extremely dangerous aura that was being released. Jin Yujun, who had fought on the battlefield for many years and climbed out of piles of corpses, immediately felt the dense killing intent. What? Although Jin Yujun was vigilant, he didn't react in time. There was already someone standing behind him. Even with his back facing the person, Jin Yujun could clearly feel the killing intent in the eyes of the person behind him. It was a killing intent that could truly kill. If Jin Yujun dared to act recklessly, the person behind him would definitely kill him. Who is it? The four people from the Black Zen sect also saw the figure that suddenly appeared. When did this person appear behind them? They didn't notice at all. It was too scary. Fortunately, This person was standing behind Jin Yujun. Did you chop off this black crystal fox's leg? A voice rang in Jin Yujun's ears. However, Jin Yujun had a feeling that this voice came from the Nine Serenities Hell. Cold sweat trickled down his back. Based on Jin Yujun's judgment, he only had one chance to draw his blade. Friend, I'm from Qingyuan Villa. If you have anything to say, let's talk nicely. Li Zhongzhou's eyes turned cold. In the next instant, he flicked his finger, and a stream of yuan energy shot towards Jin Yujun's ear. By the time Jin Yujun realized what was going on, Li Zhongzhou directly cut off half of the ear. Ah, damn it! Anger flashed in Jin Yujun's eyes. The piercing pain in his ears was unbearable. At the same time, Jin Yujun was also looking for an opportunity to strike. Looks like you're the one who did it. Then leave your leg behind. Li Zhongzhou said calmly. Jin Yujun was shocked. Kill him for me, Jin Yujun shouted. At the same time, he reached for the long blade at his waist. The action of unsheathing the long blade had been practiced countless times. However, when he used it this time, he realized that something was wrong. Because there was nothing on his waist. A wave of fear came from his heart. Jin Yujun immediately realized what was going on. At the same time, his body rushed forward. However, Li Zhongzhou had already swung his blade down. Shua! Jin Yujun's legs were left on the ground. His thighs fell to the ground with a thud. My leg! Jin Yujun roared in pain. The yuan energy in his body immediately wrapped around the wound. He knew the sharpness of his 7-star treasure blade. At this moment, even if he wanted to escape, he had no legs to run to. He could only watch as his legs were still in front of him. Go! Kill him! The 4 people from the Black Zen sect were about to charge towards Li Zhongzhou when they saw a dozen figures suddenly appear from the darkness. The leader was as strong as an ox. He did not fear any blade or spear as he charged forward. His fist exerted force and instantly smashed one of the Black Zen sect experts to the ground. Bang! The Black Zen sect member immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His mind was in chaos. Gu Man roared like a beast that had just escaped from its cage. An ambush. However, it was already too late. Li Zhongzhou led his men out of the darkness. The 3 people were already frightened by Li Zhongzhou's invincible might. Now that so many people had appeared to ambush them, none of them dared to resist. He was pinned to the ground in no time. Li Zhongzhou glanced at the black crystal fox in his arms. At this moment, the black crystal fox had already lost its life due to excessive blood loss. Even though Li Zhongzhou had more than 3,000 years of experience, and even though he had already seen through life and death, he was still extremely furious when he saw such a situation. If you kill me, you will become an enemy of Qingyuan Villa, Jin Yujun said in a deep voice. At this moment, he used his yuan power to seal the wound. Although it temporarily reduced the pain to a minimum, the shock he felt when he saw his own legs in front of him was indescribable. He could only temporarily suppress the anger and shock in his heart. At the same time, he had to stay awake. Right now the most important thing was to survive. He could not die like this. Only by living could he take revenge. Qingyuan Villa? When they heard the name of Qingyuan Villa, whether it was Gu Man or Li Gui, both of them were shocked in their hearts because the reputation of the Qingyuan Villa was too great. In the entire Xingyan dynasty, it was a famous existence. This was because the owner of Qingyuan Villa was the current first prince of the dynasty, King Qingyuan. This so-called first prince was one of the younger brothers of the emperor. However, the title of first prince meant that his cultivation was the strongest. Among all the princes, King Qingyuan was the most powerful. Furthermore, he was a genuine yuan monarch powerhouse. A living yuan monarch powerhouse could be said to be invincible. Moving mountains and filling seas was a piece of cake for them. Ascending to the top in a single bound was not a difficult task for them. Unexpectedly, in such a remote Blackwater forest, he actually met King Qingyuan's subordinate. Since he was a member of Qingyuan Villa, he could not be casually killed by an outsider. If that was the case, where would King Qingyuan put his face? Oh, Qingyuan Villa? Was it that idiot Villa who wanted to rebel, but was killed without leaving a single piece of armor behind? You are the only one who treats it as a treasure. Li Zhongjiu recalled. Qingyuan Villa was indeed quite famous in his previous life. However, the owner of Qingyuan Villa was really a fool. He thought that he had recruited some experts and won over some people's hearts. He even wanted to be the Wulian Alliance's leader or something. However, in the end he wanted to rebel. In just one night, the experts of Qingyuan Manor were all either dead or injured. At the same time, a big fire burned Qingyuan Villa for 7 days and 7 nights. During the burning period, no one dared to put out the fire. Those were hellish screams. There were also cries for help that filled the air above Qingyuan Villa. In short, the outcome was very tragic. How could the dignity of the imperial family be so easily shaken? Therefore, Li Zhongjiu mocked the person in front of him. Since you are from Qingyuan Villa, then I will do you a favor and send you on your way. Li Zhongjiu's voice fell. He directly chopped down with his long saber. Swoosh. 2 slashes. Clean and neat. He directly chopped off Jin Yojuan's hand. Ah! Jin Yujun immediately shouted loudly. This kind of pain was simply heart-wrenching. The most important thing was, when his arms were chopped off, it immediately caused a gap to appear in his body. The origin energy in his body could no longer be gathered. Instantly, the pain of his hands and legs being chopped off directly attacked his heart. This made Jin Yujun hover between life and death and pain. Li Zhongjiu lowered his body and buried the black crystal fox in front of Jin Yojuan's body. Jin Yujun couldn't move at all. He wanted to fall down, but found that he couldn't. The 4 of you watch him die. If not, you will die with him. Li Zhongjiu said indifferently. Chapter 128. In the end, the 4 people from the Black Zen sect all knelt around Jin Yujun. They stared at Jin Yujun. If Jin Yujun didn't die, they would be the ones to die. They didn't know where these people came from. Jin Yujun, who had the strength of a grade 6 Yuan master. He couldn't resist at all. This young man was terrifyingly powerful. Li Zhongjiu and the others were already far away. Li Zhongjiu felt extremely regretful that the black crystal fox was killed. After all, he had just established a spiritual connection with it. But now it was killed. Therefore Li Zhongjiu was the first to know. He had just understood the charm of the white god Fu. But it wasn't a pity, because Li Zhongjiu had already avenged him. Young master, aren't we going to kill them? These people seem to be from the Black Zen sect. Li Gui said in a low voice. Ever since the incident with Li Changjiang, news of the Black Zen sect had spread throughout the Li family. Everyone had to be extra careful. If they found traces of the Black Zen sect, they had to be extra careful. Although he knew that the young master had his own plans, how could the young master not think of what he could think of? Don't worry. They won't live past tonight. Let's continue on our way. After such a battle, they were all very excited. Since that was the case, they might as well set off directly to avoid wasting time on the road. Li Zhongjiu and the others were driving the carriage, so they were naturally slower. By the time Li Tianqing set out, he would be riding at full speed, or in some other way. A distance of 4,000 miles was not a long distance. The 4 people from the Black Zen sect knelt here. They looked at Jin Yujun, whose 4 limbs were all cut off. At this moment, Jin Yujun could no longer speak. He could only open his mouth and whimper. To be honest, to be able to hold on until now without losing consciousness was already very impressive. Seeing the pain on Jin Yojuan's face, and the broken limbs in front of them, the impact made the 4 Black Zen sect members shudder in fear. The rumbling sound of carriage wheels came from afar. They looked at each other. They had been kneeling here for at least an hour. Those people must have had the leisure to hide behind them and spy on them. Coupled with the sound of the wheels turning, they must have left. They should have left, right? Even if they didn't leave, they should be somewhere far away. We just have to hurry and rush into the Blackwater Forest. That's right. As long as we enter the forest, we won't be afraid of anything. Let's split up first and regroup when it's safe. All right. The 4 of them whispered. Jin Yujun was still alive, but he was ready to die at any time. It didn't matter if Jin Yujun died. After all, he was the one who wanted to hurt the little fox. It had nothing to do with them. The most important thing was that they had to try their best to survive. Immediately, the 4 of them counted to 3, and abruptly dashed off in 4 different directions. However, the moment they stood up, they regretted it. They realized that they had nowhere to go. Around them, there were already over 100 starving black water wolves, staring at them in the darkness. At this moment, as soon as they moved, hundreds of black water wolves suddenly rushed out from the darkness. This kind of momentum was like a tide. A devouring torrent from the darkness rushed towards them. Although these people from the Black Zen sect were fierce, everyone's strength was around the level of a first-grade Yuan master. However, after kneeling for so long, their bones were already weak. In addition, these black water wolves were ferocious. In just a few minutes, they couldn't resist anymore. I hate it. I shouldn't have gotten up. The figures of the blackwater wolves drowned these people. Hundreds of hungry wolves devoured the 5 corpses clean. There were still some skulls with bits of flesh left. They were left on the ground. Li Zongjio and the others, who were far away, heard the cries of the blackwater wolves. Hearing this, Li Gui and the others felt their scalps go numb. At this moment they hadn't gone far. In addition, after some identification, they guessed that these wolf howls came from the place just now. They didn't expect the young master to have such an ability to summon a pack of wolves. Could it be that the young master was the reincarnation of the king of the forest? In his heart, Li Gui had already labeled Li Zongjio with a few strange labels, but none of them were symbols of mysticism. The convoy continued to move forward slowly. Along the way, there were many times when they met some fellows who came to block their way. Li Zongjio also instructed to just give them money and send them away. If they could solve the problem with money, they would try their best not to use violence. That would waste too much energy. If they were covered in blood, they would have to take a bath and wash their clothes. In addition, the Li family was like the sun in the sky, and their wealth was rolling in. This money was not a problem at all. At the same time, with Li Gui and Gu Man, 2 great experts, these bandits did not dare to act recklessly. After receiving the money, they obediently left. The journey was more than 10 days, and it could be said that they were travel-worn. They were only 300 miles away from Guanxi town. In 1 more day, they would be able to arrive. Over the past few days, Li Zongjio had gained a lot of experience in this aspect of cultivation. The blood dragon origin spirit must have a Yuan formula hidden in it. However, with Li Zongjio's current level, he was still unable to touch it. Therefore, Li Zongjio simply focused on studying these 2 aspects. It seems that after the situation here settles down, I have to go out and gain experience. There are still some things that I need to snatch. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. Although he might not be able to recall the memories of his previous life clearly, however, Li Zongjio still remembered some of the more important things. For Li Zongjio, the time and place of some heavenly treasures could be obtained in advance. It was also a good opportunity to try and see if he could enter the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. He had to study it well. With Li Zongjio's previous life's experience, he speculated that there must be some hidden secret in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Therefore, he had to find it. Li Zongjio had already reached other realms. He only needed time to restore his realm. However, that was Yao Yao's indefinite saint realm. Li Zongjio still had to try hard. If there were no challenges and pursuits in life, everything would become meaningless. Suddenly, Li Zongjio's carriage shook violently. With a boom, one of the wheels of the carriage was directly blown off. Bang! The carriage flipped over and fell to the ground. Even Gu Man, who was in charge of driving, fell to the ground. Enemy attack! Li Gui turned around and saw that the young master's carriage had been blown over. How could this be? Moreover, this should have been an ambush. There should have been a hidden bomb buried under the ground early on. To be able to get such a thing, one must not have an ordinary background. This was because only the dynasty had such a thing. If one used it privately, it would be against the law. Autumn wind of Mount Mang is here. Guys, kill them. Leave the women and their belongings behind. Don't let anyone else go. Chapter 129. Mang Mountain's Autumn Wind General. This name sounded a little funny. However, the people living near Guanxi town were extremely fearful of General Qiufeng of Mount Mang. The road they were on was called Mang Mountain, and this Autumn Wind General, He was the self-proclaimed king of this generation. He was extremely cruel and merciless. His men were called the Autumn Wind Army. Wherever the Autumn Wind Army passed, not even a blade of grass would grow. This person by the name of Qiufeng Jiang. Not only did he possess frightening strength, more importantly, he had connections with this person. It was said that he had connections with the guard mansion of Guanxi town. The guard mansion was the headquarters of the armed forces in this town. The firearms provided by some empires were also secretly provided to General Qiufeng by the House of Guardians. This kind of underground trade had existed for a long time. Officials colluded with bandits. As a result, the people of Guanxi town were living in an abyss of suffering. Some caravans that were not strong enough, or if they were not prepared, would be severely injured by the autumn wind of Mount Mang and suffer heavy losses. Usually, those who knew the rules would prepare the women and jewelry in advance and send them over directly to inform them. Li Gui and the others obviously did not know the rules here. Therefore, the Autumn Wind Army was prepared to kill one to warn the others. Once in a while, a murder would let the people around know that the Autumn Wind Army's strength was not undeserved. If they had real strength, they had to make a name for themselves. Only then would people be afraid of them in the future. This was Autumn Wind General's idea. Li Zhongjiu came out of the carriage. The guards of the Li family also gathered together. A rain of arrows came from the enemy. The guards of the Li family immediately looked for cover to block the arrows. Arrows flew in the air. Gu Man let out a low roar and directly tore down a piece of wood from the broken carriage. Using it as a shield, he rushed towards the group of archers. Ding! 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 The wooden board was shot like a hedgehog. Gu Man approached and suddenly threw out the wooden board in his hand. At the same time, his ferocious hand grabbed the nearest archer. Get out of my way! The archer was like a little chick as he was flung away. He smashed into a rock, causing a comminuted fracture. He could no longer get up. Gu Man, who had rushed into the group of archers, was like a wolf in a flock of sheep, showing off his invincible might. Even General Qiufeng's eyes lit up when he saw the valiant Gu Man in the distance. At such a time, the braver one was, the greater the chance of breaking out. The more one hid, the more miserable the outcome would be. It would be easier for them to be killed. This was an unchanging law. Therefore, one should never be afraid of death on the battlefield. Take that brat down. Qiufeng saw Li Zhongjiu, who had just poked his head out. This guy looked clean and was well protected by these guards. He must be an important person. This group of people didn't seem to be easy to deal with. Every one of them was well trained. Facing the enemy, they didn't panic at all. Obviously, they were experienced. This gave General Qiufeng a headache. However, now that he was an arrow that had left the bow, there was no way to take it back. No matter how stubborn he was, he had to take him down. Under General Qiufeng's command, 3 people immediately galloped forward. These 3 people held long spears and formed a triangular charging formation. From this, it could be seen that they were well-trained and very experienced experts. Li Gui quickly locked onto the 3 enemies that were charging at him. The other party quickly approached. Fire the crossbow, Li Gui ordered. Suddenly, a guard pushed out a crossbow from the group of people. This kind of crossbow was also a mechanical weapon. As long as you could make it, you could use it. Often in the process of battle, the ballista was a very destructive defensive weapon. A series of arrows were shot out. Out of the 3 horses, 2 of them were immediately shot down. The last person was already less than 20 meters away from Li Gui and the others. Li Gui was already holding a sharp sword in his hand. His figure rushed forward, ready to fight with this person. However, he saw that person's foot tapped, and his figure rose into the air, somersaulting several times in the air. The tip of the spear was pointed downwards. Like a poisonous dragon drilling, it slashed down towards Li Zhongjiu's head. Not good. Li Gui wanted to block this person. This person's move was extraordinary. The surrounding elemental energy surged with an extremely sharp aura. However, 2 waves of energy attacked from behind. The 2 people who had fallen off their horses just now had caught up. The Li family's guards were also exchanging blows with a large number of bandits. There were shouts and screams everywhere. Take my spear. Sky-piercing thunder spear. This was a second-grade elemental skill. This person was also a fourth-grade elemental master. As for Li Zhongjiu's cultivation, when he was in Wuxia Pill sect, he was already a sixth-grade elemental master. A few days ago, he had also experienced a breakthrough. Now he was an eighth-grade elemental master. When the other party's attack landed, although the surging lightning energy in the surroundings did indeed give people a sense of nervousness, it was still not enough. However, in front of Li Zhongjiu, it was just child's play. "Young master, be careful," Li Gui roared. The eyes of the person who descended from the sky flashed with a cold light. "Your young master is dead for sure." In the next moment, the elemental energy in his body surged wildly, exploding along the tip of the spear. Like a lightning snake, it blasted towards Li Zhongjiu. When the lightning appeared, the power of the sky-piercing thunder had already arrived in front of Li Zhongjiu. Boom! Li Zhongjiu's body suddenly exploded violently. Dust filled the air. Gravel filled with intense energy shot out. Pfft! A figure directly spat out blood and flew backwards. Qiu Fengjiang, who was on a distant hillside, saw this scene and immediately widened his eyes. Qiu Fengjiang was wearing iron armor and a golden helmet. This attire, at the same time, showed that Qiu Fengjiang was a self-proclaimed general. What's going on? Qiu Fengjiang couldn't understand. Didn't his subordinate use his ultimate move to directly kill Li Zhongjiu? Why did he fly backwards and spit out blood? Just as Qiu Fengjiang continued to stare at his subordinate in front of him, he realized that his subordinate's figure was flying towards him in a strange way and trajectory. Boom! Not good, stop him! Qiu Fengjiang immediately roared. But it was too late. The subordinate directly crashed into Qiu Fengjiang, and a long spear pierced through his stomach. Qiu Fengjiang was knocked off his horse, and his stomach was directly pierced through by a long spear. "General, what happened to you?" "General." Seeing this, the surrounding people immediately jumped off their horses and came to Qiu Fengjiang's side. However, Qiu Fengjiang was indifferent. This spear directly took away his life. His internal organs had already been shattered. Qiu Fengjiang fell off his horse. Everyone was shocked. At this moment, a young voice came from the battlefield below. "Kill them all." Chapter 130. There were rules in Jianghu. If everyone abided by the rules, the situation would naturally calm down. However, there were often people who liked to break the rules and act recklessly with their self-righteous strength. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu didn't show any mercy to such people who didn't abide by the rules and didn't care about morality. He immediately killed Qiu Fengjiang. Even with Qiu Fengjiang's heavy armor and his strength as a fifth-grade Yuan master, he was unable to dodge the spear. In such a small place, such strength and military strength was enough to establish an entire family. However, these people just had to occupy this place and do such cruel and bloody things. Since Li Zhongjiu was here, he had to take care of these people. He was not chivalrous. Li Zhongjiu was not a very righteous person. For his own benefit, he could kill people. However, he was not a bad person. At the very least, Li Zhongjiu had his own principles. The name of evil lord was not fabricated out of thin air. With young master Li Zhongjiu's order, and the killing of the enemy's leader, the morale of this side was greatly boosted. Although there were only a dozen guards. Previously, these guards had been trained by old master Gu Xuanwu. As a result, they were able to reach a state where they could cooperate with each other tacitly. At the same time, the most important thing was that they were not afraid of killing. Only real blood and the flames of war could make people grow. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu was quite satisfied with these guards. At the very least, they did not panic. Immediately, Li Gui led the guards to counterattack. On the other side, Gu Man was also fighting to his heart's content, restraining all the archers. Only someone like Gu Man could become an overlord in the future with such a ferocious aura. Li Zhongjiu thought in his heart. From the beginning, the foundation had been laid. Gu Man was not afraid of battle at all. Like a brave vanguard general, he rushed to the forefront of the battlefield and tore apart the enemy's formation. In the end, the Qiu Fengjiang army was completely defeated. After losing their backbone, these people ran away. They threw away their armor along the way. The guards of the Li family were covered in blood, and the swords in their hands were chipped like teeth. This was a true blood-soaked battle. More than 100 people were lying on the ground. With only a dozen or so people, they actually managed to kill their way out of the encirclement of nearly 300 people. At the same time, they also managed to defeat the more than 300 people. After leaving over 100 corpses behind, they immediately fled. On the other hand, although a few of the Li family's guards were heavily injured, their lives weren't in danger. Basically, everyone was injured. This was definitely a complete victory. When he returned from here, he could brag to his heart's content. Of course, Li Zongjio had also killed many people. Otherwise, there was no guarantee that some of these people would lose their lives. The seriously injured are lying on the carriages. The lightly injured continue to maintain the formation. We will leave this place first. Li Gui's back was also slashed 3 times. If it wasn't for Li Zongjio's intervention, the 2 masters would have chopped Li Gui into pieces long ago. The power of a Master Origin Realm cultivator was too strong. Although he was injured, Li Gui did not panic and did not fall down. That was how he calmly issued his orders. On this point, even Li Zongjio nodded inwardly. These 2 carriages were directly damaged in the battle just now. The other carriage was even more miserable. It was directly shot into a hedgehog. "Young master, get on the horse," Li Gui said. He couldn't possibly let the young lord walk while he rode the horse. Therefore, Li Gui gave his horse to the young lord. This little fellow's performance just now was very good. This horse really followed its master. If Li Gui was panicking just now, then this horse would naturally be frightened and run around in all directions. But just now, the horse was standing there obediently, and even helped Li Gui kick away an enemy. "No need. Let the injured brothers get on the horses," Li Zongjio said. After saying that, he walked forward by himself. Looking at the back of his young master, Li Gui's heart was filled with indescribable admiration. He was powerful, young and promising, and also very kind. Last time, the family's guards were killed. They directly killed their way into the other party's nest, and heavily injured the people of Flying Cloud City's Su family. They killed several elders and even killed their family's head, making the Su family compensate. This also completely shocked the forces of Flying Cloud City. Therefore, the forces of Flying Cloud City did not dare to act recklessly. After all, they still had some influence. Clans that could surpass the Su clan might not be able to stop the Li clan's meta beast. After all, the Li clan's old ancestor was killed directly. The outcome was imaginable. The other party might have even more terrifying means. Otherwise, why would they be so arrogant? Even now, when the Li family's forces moved in, the city lord's mansion of Flying Cloud City also made way for them. They did not dare to offend them directly. At the very least, before they truly understood the situation, they would not deliberately make things difficult for them. "Little Yun, get on the horse," Li Gui said. He pointed at a relatively young guard and asked him to get on the horse. A large piece of flesh was cut off from the guard's leg, but only a simple bandage was applied. It was impossible for him to walk. Little Cloud didn't even have the chance to refuse before she was carried onto the warhorse by 2 of her teammates. The group moved forward again. The carriage with the goods was not attacked. After all, these people would deliberately avoid these goods. Sometimes people would transport some priceless antiques and fragile things. If there was any damage, the loss would be great. "You have to kill 10,000 people in order to master your fist technique," said Qin Wentian. Seeing Gu Man walk over, he opened his mouth and said, "What? Kill 10,000 people? Impossible, impossible. I'm not a homicidal maniac." Gu Man shook his head repeatedly. When Li Zongjio heard this, he smiled but did not say anything. 10,000 people. This guy would definitely be a great killing machine in the future. The people he killed would be more than 10,000. Because this battle had also delayed a little. Therefore, they just arrived at Guanxi town that night. Although Wuxia city was small, it was still a city. The city wall was 150 feet high. It could more or less defend against the enemy. However, in Guanxi town, the so-called city wall was just an earthen wall. Some parts of it had even fallen off. Li Zhongjiu's grandfather was a local rich man in this town. Although it was night, it was difficult to resist the smell of blood that permeated Li Zhongjiu and his men. After going through a bloody battle, they appeared to be in a sorry state on the surface. However, the eyes of these guards were as sharp as knives, warning others not to approach. Otherwise, they would be attacked. Therefore, one by one, they took a detour. "Stop, who are you?" An ignorant guard did not see the hint in his boss's eyes. He just habitually wanted to extort a sum of money. He directly walked out and stopped Li Zhongjiu and his men. Chapter 131. When this person walked out, the atmosphere at the scene became extremely strange. That person looked as if he had just woken up. When he looked carefully at the group of people in front of him, he realized that something was wrong. None of the people in front of him seemed easy to deal with. But now, he had already said those harsh words. If he wanted to take them back, it would be impossible. Moreover, it would be a very shameful thing. Cough, cough. We need to pay taxes to enter the pass. The soldier coughed a few times, and his tone softened a little. He looked at his companions. They seemed to be sitting on the ground, frightened by the other party's aura. "How much?" Li Gui walked out and said in a deep voice. He stared at the person in front of him. After seeing Li Gui's eyes, the soldier's heart trembled violently. In fact, these soldiers could only be considered as military ruffians. They were recruited on the spot by the local guard office. They did not even need to go through much training. They just put on the uniform and went to work directly. The people they recruited were local bullies and hooligans. They were best at bullying ordinary people. But when he saw Li Gui in front of him and the murderous eyes of these guards, he knew that this matter would not be resolved so easily. It was not easy to take money from these people in front of him. "Everyone 1 silver coin." He wanted to say 5 silver coins out of habit to extort a sum of money, but when the words came to his mouth, he immediately changed his words. He did not dare to say it again. If he said it out loud, it would be over. Ding! Li Gui tossed out a gold coin. This gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins. "Keep the change." The soldier took the money, and almost did not dare to believe his eyes. Just by opening his mouth, he was able to obtain a gold coin. When he was here, not only would he not be able to get his monthly salary, it would also be deducted. Even if he did get it, the price would not be so high. It was quite good to be able to save a gold coin in 3 months. The sudden happiness made the soldier unable to come back to his senses. "Let me ask you, where is old Master Shen's home?" Li Gui continued to ask. "Old Master Shen?" The soldier was stunned at first, then he tried to recall. "Which old man Shen?" At the same time, he sized up Li Gui and the others. "Master Shen Chuanqiu, what is your relationship with the Shen family?" When the guard heard this, his expression immediately changed. At the same time, he became nervous. He deliberately raised his voice so that the people behind him could hear him and let his companions know what was going on here. "The Shen family?" When he heard these words, the guard captain behind him immediately stood up. The situation at the scene once again became strange. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder. The guard captain whispered a few words to the person beside him. The person beside him nodded and quickly ran away. "Where are you from? What are you doing in Guanxi town?" The captain of the guards pushed aside the guards in front of him and came in front of Li Gui. The guards behind him were also waiting solemnly. If it was in the past, the guards of the Li family might have been a little nervous. Everyone had their swords drawn and bows bent, confronting each other for a while. But now, these people only raised their eyelids and looked at these people with sneers. If their young master gave the order, it would only take 3 minutes for these people's heads to be taken away. Even though they had not made a move yet, they still felt uneasy when they saw the look in these people's eyes. "What I'm asking is where old man Shen's house is," Li Gui said. After following Li Zhongjiu for a long time, his attitude towards these things had changed. When he saw these people's actions, he knew that something was wrong. Not far away, a large group of people was rushing over. When the captain of the guards heard the commotion in front of him, he turned around to take a look and smiled in his heart. When he turned around, he suddenly realized that there was another figure in front of him. "Fuck you fucking." Before he could finish speaking, Li Zongjio grabbed the guard captain's neck. "Tell me, what happened to the Shin family? How dare you?" The voice of the guard that Li Zongjio was pointing at immediately became sharp. "Take him down!" Li Gui shouted. The Li family guards behind him, who were only slightly injured, immediately drew their swords and attacked. Chi! 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 When they got close, they directly stabbed their thighs. The dozen guards in front of them were all taken down in the blink of an eye. Gu Man chased after a few of them, who had escaped further away. He punched them one by one and sent them flying to the ground. They were definitely seriously injured. When such a tyrannical fist force was displayed, how many thin and weak bodies could withstand it? This was especially true for these good-for-nothings, who only knew how to wear such clothes to scare people. The face of the guard captain, whose throat was gripped by Li Zongjio, had already turned purple. He was forced to the point that he could not breathe. Crack! Li Zongjio's 5 fingers exerted a little force, and immediately broke the neck of the guard in front of him. The only guard who wasn't attacked was the one who had taken the money at the beginning. He stood in his original spot, and even the saber at his waist was only half drawn. He didn't dare to draw it out anymore. If he pulled it out, the situation would be dangerous. He could only watch helplessly as his captain of the guards died right in front of his eyes. He could not believe his eyes. No matter what, it was still the same. Wearing this uniform, he was also a member of the dynasty. Killing a soldier of the dynasty in the street like this, he would have to go to jail. How dare you kill a regular soldier of the dynasty in the street? I am the first military governor of Guanxi town, Ma Yuanshan. I am ordered to catch the murderer. Take him down. The person who came was full of confidence. He was actually a Yuan Qi master. His cultivation had already reached the level of a 5th grade Yuan master. Those who held important positions in this dynasty's organization had to have some real ability. Otherwise, even if the people below couldn't suppress them, the people above couldn't hide from them either. Therefore, to be able to hold the position of the first military governor, one must have some real ability. Ma Yuanshan waved his hand, and immediately the people behind him swarmed forward. Li Zongjio and the others were heavily surrounded. Li Gui and the others were not clear about the situation, but it seemed that something had happened in old Master Shen's mansion. Li Zongjio's eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked at Ma Yuanshan. Ma Yuanshan had brought people to kill them aggressively, but he did not expect that the eyes of the young man in front of him were still as bright as the stars even in the dark night. His gaze was as if he could see through him. I will give you 3 breaths to tell me about the Shen family. Otherwise, I will take your head. Chapter 132. I want your head. It had been many years since he heard such arrogant words. Ma Yuanshan had already been in this area for so many years, and he had already subdued all the gangsters and bandits in the surrounding mountains. Yet, this little brat in front of him actually dared to utter such ruthless words. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people behind him, and that he was a veteran of hundreds of battles, he would probably be scared. She would probably be scared out of her wits. There are so many people who want my head. Why haven't I seen any of them yet? Come if you have the ability. I'll leave my head here. Ma Yuanshan laughed loudly. 3 breaths have passed. Li Zongjio's voice faded as he took a step forward. Suddenly, there was a fishy wind around him. Although Ma Yuanshan didn't care about it on the surface, he was already prepared in his heart. These people in front of him came from Luoxia City. He didn't know if the people of Luoxia City had heard some news, so they quickly came. Otherwise, how could he have arrived here so quickly? However, even if Ma Yuanshan was 120% alert, it was still difficult to resist Li Zongjio's move. However, Ma Yuanshan had already caught Li Zongjio's movement. When he saw Li Zongjio charging towards him, Ma Yuanshan immediately shouted in a low voice. You overestimate yourself. What could a kid do? Previously, Ma Yuanshan was worried that there might be some elders of the Li family hiding in the camp. These people were the ones he needed to pay attention to. Li Zongjio's figure flashed and appeared in front of Ma Yuanshan. His left hand clenched into a fist and pushed out. Suddenly, a power that resembled a rainbow piercing through the sun erupted. Boom! Although Ma Yuanshan saw Li Zhongjiu's movement, he found that he couldn't keep up with it. He could only watch as Li Zhongjiu's fist smashed towards his throat. Bang! Ma Yuanshan's feet didn't leave the ground. His body didn't move, but his neck suddenly sank. At the same time, a piece of scarlet flesh flew out from the back of his neck. The bones in his neck were directly broken by Li Zhongjiu's fist. He died in an instant. Without the connection of the spine, the neck naturally fell between the shoulders like an ornament. However, the most shocking thing was, Ma Yuanshan's flesh wasn't damaged at all. Ma Yuanshan's body showed a strange posture. Li Zhongjiu pulled out a short knife from Ma Yuanshan's waist. In front of the man in front of him, he directly cut off Ma Yuanshan's head, including his skin and flesh. When his head was chopped off, Ma Yuanshan's body fell to the ground with a loud thud. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The soldiers surrounding Li Zhongjiu didn't dare to come close. Ma Yuanshan was their leader, and also their strongest expert. However, he was easily killed by Li Zhongjiu. What kind of monster was this young man? Next you. Same. I'll give you 3 breaths. Li Zhongjiu pointed at a person. This person was a squadron leader. He had more than 10 people under him. Now that the first military governor was dead, it should be the deputy general to take control of the situation. However, Li Zhongjiu directly pointed at him. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned to him. Immediately, the pressure on them became quite great. With the example of Ma Yuanshan, no one dared to be stubborn. If they didn't explain the situation clearly, they would probably end up like Ma Yuanshan. Regardless of whether the Guardian's residence would help them take revenge, at that time they would. You can't even see it. Shen family. Shen family has been sealed. Tomorrow, the Shen family will be executed. Now, they are imprisoned in the dungeon of the defender's residence. The squadron leader stuttered. When he spoke, he accidentally bit his tongue. He didn't dare to stop and directly said everything. Li Zhongjiu's eyes were suddenly filled with murderous intent. The squadron leader felt cold all over, and his body couldn't help but tremble. Then he saw Li Zhongjiu's knife coming down. Crash! The squadron leader's body was directly split into 2. His internal organs fell to the ground and still jumped. Go to the defender's residence. Li Zhongjiu's body was full of murderous intent. These people were actually so audacious. Not only did they destroy the Shen family, but they also directly arrested all the people of the Shen family and prepared to execute them the next day. In his previous life, Li Zhongjiu only knew that his family was destroyed. His mother and father were also killed. Li Changjiang was the one who was responsible for all of this. But he didn't expect that the defender's residence dared to interfere. As for the reason, Li Zhongjiu didn't think it was necessary. No matter what the reason was, no one could hurt his family, his relatives. No one. The Li family's guard team suddenly became murderous. After such a thing happened, how could they let it go easily? Li Zhongjiu's mother was the wife of their family head. Although they all had the surname Li, they were family. Everyone blocked Li Zhongjiu's side and stared ahead. They were in a confrontation with the surrounding soldiers. In fact, there was a deputy general in this team. However, after seeing how ruthless Li Zhongjiu was, and how even Ma Yuanshan was killed, the deputy general had already killed 3 people in a row. According to the law, Li Zhongjiu had committed a capital crime. But Li Zhongjiu's team was like a suicide squad. These people didn't dare to move at all. With such a murderous aura released, no one dared to provoke this iron-blooded team. Just like that, Li Zhongjiu and the others swaggered out of the encirclement of these people. These people didn't even dare to say anything. Watching the enemy leave was a very sullen feeling. Ahem, everyone don't panic. Don't panic. Who knows where the defender is now? After Li Zhongjiu and the rest left, the deputy dared to stand up. He had been thinking about it all the time. When would Ma Yuanshan die, so that he could be in charge of such a large number of guards? In the whole town, there were only so many guards. However, in this city, there would always be guards by the side of the Lord Guardian. These people were all experts. Only the Lord Guardian could deal with the people in front of him. As for the rest, whoever went up would die. There was no ambiguity. The defender seems to be in Willowflower Alley. Bright Moon Hotel. Someone said. Willowflower Alley, Bright Moon Hotel? When the deputy heard this, he immediately slapped his head. This was troublesome. Why did the defender go looking for fun at this time? But now that the fire was on his eyebrows, he didn't have time to think about it. He quickly ran over. He had to report the situation here. Chapter 133. The location of the defender's residence had always been easy to find. It was located in the most central area. No matter which city gate it was, as long as one entered the city and walked straight ahead, they would definitely be able to see the defender's residence. The defender's residence occupied an area of nearly 300 meters. Even the usual military training grounds were placed here. When the dynasty was first established, in order to establish its position and consolidate its position, it had already increased the power of these people and expanded the military force to form a deterrent. Whether it was the commoners or the forces of the underworld, they all feared the power of the dynasty. Even until now, these people had not been disarmed. Hence, this kind of drawback was gradually revealed. Some people even had their own military force, feigning compliance, but opposing in secret, and even doing some extremely outrageous things. Using the dynasty's name, they did the dirty deeds of bandits. There were countless places like Guanxi town under the dynasty. Hence, even the defender's residence was quite domineering. It could also be said that it was quite free. It had the power and manpower in its hands. Whoever it wanted dead would die. Just like the Shen family. The Shen family was powerful, right? Wasn't the Shen family very powerful? The Shen family had been rich for several generations. This old man, Shen Chuanxiu, had made his fortune by relying on animal skins, and became the fur king of Guanxi town. After being rich for so long, he still did not know how to pay more money. The defender's residents could not stand by and watch, so they secretly took action. Later on, this matter became more and more serious. This caused the defender's hair to stand on end, and he ordered the Shen family to be wiped out. Now in the dungeon of the defender's residence, the main figures of the Shen family were all imprisoned here. Facing the situation in front of him, Shen Chuanxiu's chi sank into his dantian as he sat in the cell. Beside him, a beautiful woman with long hair tied in a ponytail was half kneeling, taking care of the old man. Father, don't worry. I have already sent someone to inform Tianqing. This beautiful woman was Li Zhongjiu's mother, Shen Xinxiao. Her clothes were not bad, but she did not lose her elegance. There was always a calm aura around her. As she spoke, Shen Xinxiao also looked at the few people imprisoned in the opposite cell. The two people imprisoned in the opposite cell were Shen Xinxiao's two elder brothers. After exchanging glances with each other, they were secretly certain. There was no news of the person who went out to ask for help. He was most likely crippled. Therefore, if they wanted to survive, there was only one way, which was to kill their way out. Killing their way out also required time. However, Shen Chuanxiu was stubborn. The House of Guardians accused Shen Chunxiu of evading taxes and killing some rare beasts. They said the beasts were raised in Guanxi town by the dynasty. When did a few wild boars become national treasures? These people kept talking about the dynasty's laws. The old man was furious. He was a law-abiding citizen, so he proudly puffed out his chest and raised his head, declaring that he was innocent. In the end, he was still arrested and thrown into jail. He wanted to use this attitude to prove his innocence. His children followed him in one by one. Their old father had been taken away. Could it be that he was still sleeping at home? In short, Shen Chuanxiu was starting to regret his decision. His grandfather had been righteous all his life. If he said he didn't do it, then he didn't do it. He could even use his own blood to prove his innocence. He could die, but his children didn't have to die with him. However, what was done could not be undone. There was no chance for him to turn things around. The most infuriating thing was that Shen Chuanxiu only found out after he was sent to jail. It turned out that the other family in Guanxi town, the Tang family, had colluded with the House of Guardians to destroy the Shen family's foundation. They had stolen the Shen family's assets. Old Master Shen, who knew everything, was filled with regret. He didn't expect that he would be harmed by despicable people. At that time he almost didn't. His entire person directly passed over just like that. Fortunately, Shen Xinxiao stabilized the old man's condition. Since these people wanted to cut the Gordian knot and play tricks behind the scenes, the Shen family couldn't just sit and wait for death. After all, Shen Xinxiao had seen the world. Now he was ready to kill his way out. In the middle of the night, he would find an excuse and lead the Shen family out. They would return to Wuxia city first. Most importantly, they had to capture the guardian Jiangsong. Otherwise, the Shen family, which had 40 to 50 people of all ages, wouldn't live to see the next day. It was a very risky thing to do. However, if he didn't take the risk, he wouldn't have any other opportunities. In fact, the family line might even be cut off. Tonight would definitely be a night of bloody battle. Fuck these bastards. When I get out, I'll kill all of you. Shen Xinxiao wasn't a weak woman. How could a woman who could pick up a rolling pin and chase people around be an ordinary person? This is a disaster for the Shen family. I didn't expect that the Shen family, which had been prosperous for generations, would encounter such a disaster in my hands. Thinking of this, old Master Shen Chunqiu couldn't help but cough. The thought of it made him angry. His emotions were so agitated that the injuries he had gotten from hunting in the mountains in his early years flared up again. Every member of the Shen family was a natural hunter. Now they were like tigers trapped in a cage. Evil people are in charge. I, Shen Xinxiao, will not let these people off even if I become a ghost. Shen Xinxiao said sternly. Her eyes were filled with a manly spirit. At the same time, she was extremely angry about this matter. Hee old Master Shen, is the food in the dungeon safe? Just as the members of the Shen family were feeling melancholy, a provocative and playful voice rang out. The sound of gold and jewels colliding could be heard. A fat man, who was wearing gold and silver, walked in under the protection of a few guards in black. The man was holding 3 walnuts in his hand. He was twirling them in his hand when he saw the pitiful appearance of a little bird that had stubbornly survived in the ruins. It was easy for him to make a move. Most importantly, when the fat man saw Shen Xinxiao's beautiful figure, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He had been attracted to Shen Xinxiao since he was young. However, he had been robbed of his love by a kid who had come out of nowhere. In the past, the Shen family and the Tang family were evenly matched. Hence, Shen Xinxiao could ignore him completely. However, things were different now. Shen Xinxiao was already a prisoner. His life and death were at the mercy of others. If he didn't take advantage of this opportunity to have some fun, it would be a waste. Tang Yuan, what are you doing here? Shen Chunqiu shouted when he saw the fat man. Although my Shen family has been harmed by evil people, it is not something that a mere Tang Yuan can insult. Since your Tang family is so despicable, my Shen family will not let you off. Tang Yuan laughed loudly when she heard this. Old Master Shen, do you still think that you are the richest man in Guanxi town? Ha ha ha. Your Shen family's territory has been taken over by my Tang family. Even if you get out of here alive, you will have nothing left. Now Shen Xinxiao, you have a chance tonight. I can take a huge risk and help you avoid the death penalty. What do you think? Your Shen family has reached the end. Only I can save you now. Other than me, who else can come and go as they please? This is the death penalty prison of the House of Guardians. Ha 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 ha. Tang Yuan laughed loudly. Just as her laughter reached its peak, a loud bang rang out. With a loud bang, the door to the dungeon was violently smashed apart. Countless wood chips flew out, interrupting Tang Yuan's laughter. Chapter 134. Who's there? The sudden explosion made it hard for anyone to react. The one who reacted the fastest was the head of the prison. This head of the prison had been in this line of work for 20 years. Under the deterrence of the dynasty's laws, he had been safe and sound for so many years. He had never encountered such a situation where someone forced their way in and ransacked the dungeon. He did not expect to encounter it today. Even when it happened in front of him, he still could not react. He did not know what was going on in front of him. The entrance was filled with dust. The head of the prison shouted, "Get out!" Suddenly, a sharp arrow pierced through the dust cloud. Xiao! The sharp arrow immediately pierced through the prison head's heart. The powerful force nailed the prison head's body to the wall. Prison head! When the guards saw this scene, they immediately cried out in alarm. The strongest jailer had been killed just like that, and they immediately panicked. Before the dust had even settled, a figure could be seen walking out of the dust cloud. The figure took a few steps and arrived in front of the prison cell. "Hey you!" The prison guard wanted to stop Li Zhongjiu, but he saw a group of people rushing in. Their long swords fell and cut these people in half. Blood splattered everywhere. When this person was cut in half, Li Gui's eyes did not waver at all. There was only an unchanging determination. Hey, what's going on? Where did this kid come from? How dare he break into the prison? How dare he offend the laws of the Shengyan dynasty? Tang Yuan saw Li Zhongjiu walking down the stairs. At first glance, he was just a child. What was there to be afraid of? "You guys go and capture this kid. Send him to the Lord Guardian." Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the attention of the Shen family. When Shen Xinxiao saw the young man walking down, he was pleasantly surprised at first. However, when he took a closer look, he found it hard to believe. However, Shen Xinxiao quickly confirmed that this was his son. Zhongjiu? Li Zhongjiu walked down with a murderous aura. Originally, he was prepared to go on a killing spree. These unruly people who had a close relationship with him actually dared to lay their hands on the close relatives of the evil lord, Li Zhongjiu, and even threw his mother into the dungeon. Such arrogant behavior had thoroughly enraged Li Zhongjiu. When Li Zhongjiu found out about this, no one in the defender's residence would survive. However, when he heard his mother calling out to him, the murderous aura on Li Zhongjiu's body instantly vanished. This long-awaited call had been heard for a full 3,000 years. Now he had heard of it again. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. The child wants to raise, but the parents are no longer around. This was probably the greatest pain and regret in the mortal world. In his previous life, even though Li Zhongjiu had become the unparalleled evil lord and enjoyed the respect of the world, Li Zhongjiu had never been happy. He had never felt truly happy. Even his heart had long turned to stone. After 3,000 years, he had returned to his youth. Such an unbelievable thing had happened to him. It also made Li Zhongjiu feel like he was in a dream. "Mother," Li Zhongjiu shouted. This word had been sealed in Li Zhongjiu's mouth for more than 3,000 years. To Li Zhongjiu, this touching sound was something that he would never forget. Since he was reborn, he had to grasp everything in front of him. Who is it? Shen Xuanxiu could not react. "Xinxiao's son?" "Father, this is Zhongjiu Li Zhongjiu." Shen Xinxiao was a little emotional. He thought that before he died, he would not be able to see the person he loved and his child. He did not care about Li Tianqing. They had seen each other for so long, but not being able to see his son was the greatest pain and regret in Shen Xinxiao's heart. As a mother, this pain would be so deep. However, Shen Xinxiao did not show it. Just now, he was silently praying in his heart that he would be able to see Li Zhongjiu again. Could it be that the heavens had spoken directly? "Li Zhongjiu? Oh, it's my silly grandson from Wuxia City." Shen Xuanxiu remembered and quickly said. If Shen Xinxiao's IQ was online at this time, he would definitely talk back. However, Shen Xuanxiu's words were pardonable. Shen Xuanxiu actually liked this little grandson very much. However, because of an incident, he became this silly grandson. Li Zhongjiu's incident was well known in the entire Wuxia city. The incident where he used the poison as an elixir. In the end, the victim was Shen Xuanxiu. That was why Shen Xuanxiu came up with this idea. However, Shen Xuanxiu did not blame Li Zhongjiu. On the contrary, he was very fond of this bold grandson of his. It was supposed to be a very warm reunion scene, but now, it was blocked by the iron fence. Therefore, the moment Li Zhongjiu saw it, his anger rose directly. "So it's that bastard from Wuxia City. Sister Shen, you are so self-deprecating, it makes me very sad. Look at this kid. He looks like a bull's head and a horse's face. It's really ugly." Tang Yuan said repeatedly. She was extremely sarcastic towards Li Zhongjiu. Li Zhongjiu did not pay attention to Tang Yuan. Instead, he went directly to the fence and punched. With a loud bang, the fence in front of him was shattered. This domineering power was obvious at a glance. Even Tang Yuan's sarcastic words could not help but stop at this moment. Mother, grandfather, you have suffered. Li Zhongjiu felt extremely sorry in his heart. If he had come earlier, he wouldn't have had to suffer so much. What guardian residence? If he dared to take a step into the Shen family, he would break his arms and legs. He would enter vertically and leave horizontally. Mother, it's okay. Quick! Let your men take grandfather and leave first. The battle outside ended very quickly. Li Gui and the others were also covered in blood. They directly ignored Tang Yuan and the others and released all the members of the Shen family. Don't worry. Today with me here, no one can hurt the Shen family, Li Zhongjiu said. Just as these words were spoken, a wave of laughter that sounded like pigs being slaughtered erupted from outside. Ahahaha, this is too funny. Shen Xinqiao, your son is not only an ugly monster, but also a retard. No one can hurt the Shen family. Ugly child. Please go out and find out what the Shen family's situation is now. They have already been sentenced to death by the dynasty's laws. Tang Yuan laughed loudly. Although the Shen family members were released, no one dared to touch Tang Yuan. This was because the four people beside Tang Yuan were also very famous. They had once worked together to kill a great bandit hiding in Guanxi town, and became famous after that battle. Although the Shuns were all experienced hunters, they were still far from enough to deal with these experts who could hunt down and kill bandits. After all, they were just ordinary hunters. The only ones who had some standard and some yuan qi were Shen Xinqiao and Shen Xinqiao's elder brother, Shen Nanxiao. One had to admit that this name was given quite casually. When Tang Yuan said such insulting words to Li Zhongjiu, Li Gui was already prepared to make a move. Only Li Gui and 3 guards were sent into the dungeon. The rest of the people were stationed at the periphery to attract the enemy's firepower. Ha! The 4 black-clothed men immediately took a step forward and shielded Tang Yuan behind them. They were in a confrontation with Li Gui and the others. Li Gui and the others did not make a move. Shen Xinqiao wanted to curse back, but he was stopped by Li Zhongjiu. Li Zhongjiu turned around and walked towards Tang Yuan. Everyone looked at Li Zhongjiu's actions. Do you know what it means to live a life worse than death? Li Zhongjiu looked at Tang Yuan. He said very seriously. Chapter 135. No matter what, Tang Yuan was still the young master of the Tang family, the #1 family in town. What sort of situation had he not seen before? He was able to toy with countless women in the town. He was able to make the bandits make way for him. He was able to make the people in the prison open the door for him. And he was even able to drink and chat merrily with the son of the town guard. In fact, there was nothing in Guanxi town that Tang Yuan couldn't do. And now, in front of his 4 subordinates, he was actually threatened by a teenage child. How could Tang Yuan tolerate this? Immediately, Tang Yuan angrily pushed away the 4 guards in front of him. You brat! Tang Yuan wanted to rush up and slap Li Zhongjiu. However, Li Zhongjiu directly stepped forward and grabbed Tang Yuan's hair. Pa! Tang Yuan fell to the ground. Li Zhongjiu's sudden attack was so fast that the guards didn't even have time to react. They saw Li Zhongjiu finish his attack. What are you doing? With an angry roar, one of them wanted to snatch Tang Yuan back. After all, this was their duty. However, Li Gui and the others had already made their move. Although the Li family guards were seriously injured, their combat experience had increased by a significant amount. Their bloodthirstiness had also made these people feel a deep sense of dread. Li Zhongjiu directly grabbed Tang Yuan's hair and dragged him out. Li Gui and the other Li family's guards blocked the 4 black-clothed guards and were still fighting among them. The scene was a chaotic scene. Shen Xinqiao led the Shen family's people and quickly followed Li Zhongjiu's footsteps. During this process, Tang Yuan could only watch helplessly as the 4 guards she had brought with her fell to the ground one after another. Hiss! Let me go, let me go! He seemed to have realized something. Tang Yuan woke up. His men had been killed by Li Zhongjiu. Who else could save him? Not many people knew that he had secretly come to the town guard's residence tonight. The only people who knew were already killed by the Li family's guards. These people even dared to kill the guards of the town guard's residence. If they killed him, it would only be one more life. Amidst the chaos, Tang Yuan had already understood her situation. Under such circumstances, there was no longer any hope. Why did the situation become like this? At this moment, Tang Yuan also wondered why he had done such a stupid thing, and said such a stupid thing. Li Zongjio dragged Tang Yuan all the way to a flagpole. As an institution under the dynasty, there would always be a flagpole with the dynasty's holy flame flag. Li Zongjio pulled the flagpole out. When Tang Yuan saw that Li Zongjio had let go of her to fiddle with the flagpole, she scrambled to run away. Murder, murder! After running for a distance, Tang Yuan saw that Li Zongjio did not chase after him. He heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to curse Li Zongjio, he saw the flagpole in Li Zongjio's hand stabbing towards him. What? Puchi! The tip of the bamboo pole was sharp. It easily pierced through Tang Yuan's stomach and came out from the back of his neck. It was dyed red by the Xingyan dynasty's flag. Ah! Ouch, ouch, ouch! At this moment, Tang Yuan felt excruciating pain all over her body. Even the slightest breath she took was excruciatingly painful. The flagpole pierced through Tang Yuan's body, but it did not hurt any of his organs. In other words, even if the bamboo pole was pulled away, it would only be a superficial wound. He was in a trance. Tang Yuan looked at the things in front of her gradually getting farther and farther away from her. Suddenly, she appeared at the top of Guanxi town. Looking down from the top of Guanxi town, she saw that she was strung up by the flagpole and directly lifted into the sky. She was at least 10 meters above the ground. Fuck! What are you trying to do? Put me down! Li Zongjio raised his head and looked at his masterpiece. Stringing people up was a method that Li Zongjio often used. The flagpole pierced through the body and did not hurt the internal organs. The bleeding rate was also relatively slow. At present, he could at least last 2 to 3 days before he died. Of course, during this process, there was no lack of elixirs. Li Zongjio flicked his finger. Suddenly, with a whoosh, some elixir powder turned into a ray of light and smashed into Tang Yuan's body. It exploded, and the elixir powder spread out. For ordinary people it had no effect. However, for some ants and other animals that like sweets, this was something that had a fatal attraction. To them, this thing was simply a treasure bestowed by the heavens. The smell was enough to spread to the range of 100 meters. On the other hand, all the ants within 100 meters would gather here. It directly invaded Tang Yuan's wound. What are you trying to do? What did you sprinkle on me? While he was shouting, Li Zongjio threw another stone and hit one of Tang Yuan's acupoints. Since then she had lost control of her body below her neck. Even her fingers could not move. Tang Yuan fell into a state of extreme panic when she felt such a sensation on her body. Enjoy it. Li Zongjio looked at Tang Yuan, who was hanging high on the flagpole. Then he turned and left. Those ants would crawl along the flagpole from one side of the wound to the other side of the wound. This feeling of being pierced by thousands of ants. Anyone would choose to kneel down and beg for mercy. If he had the ability to fight, he believed that the wound on his body would definitely fester. Even if an ant burrowed into his body, the unbearable itch would be magnified dozens or even hundreds of times. Brat, put me down quickly. Otherwise, I will not forgive you. Tang Yuan roared. Now, only his throat could make a sound, but Li Zongjio turned a deaf ear. Instead, he came in front of a group of Shen family members, who were still in a state of shock and disbelief. While Shen Chuanxiu was still in the prison, he had already made up his mind. He had to get rid of all these people. The guardian residents had gone too far. If they continued to compromise, their Shen family would be finished. Tonight they were almost finished. Hence, they had to show their strength and retaliate. That was the only way. Only then could he ensure that his family would not decline. Gu Man led a few guards from the Li family to search the protector's estate. However, apart from capturing a few guards who were hiding, they didn't find the Lord Protector's figure. Immediately, he hurried to Li Zongjio's side to report. Stay in the defender's residence and wait for the defender to return. Chapter 136. Li Zongjio said. It had to be said that this was an extremely bold and crazy idea. The people of the Shun family had escaped with great difficulty, and now there was no place for them to go in Guanxi town. The only way was to leave Guanxi town as soon as possible. However, if that was the case, the Shun family would also decline. After all, the Shun family was based in Guanxi town. If the Shun family were to move, and not just move, but flee, they would leave Guanxi town. Coupled with the court's arrest warrant, all of them would become fugitives. No one could bear such a blow. That's right. I want to know what Lu Jianzhong is capable of. Damn that fatty. Lu Jianzhong. That was the name of the garrison. Of course, Lu Jianzhong was young, but he came to Guanxi town early to make a fortune. Although it was a small place, Lu Jianzhong's identity was not simple. To be able to take up the position of a guard at the age of 30, if he wasn't very capable, then he must have a very strong background. Putting aside Lu Jianzhong's background, his position as a garrison guard was an official of the Saint Flame Empire. If anything were to happen to him, he would have the support of the Saint Flame Empire. In this small Guanxi town, Lu Jianzhong could do whatever he wanted. As for the so-called supervision department, he just needed to bribe them, and there would be no problem. Father, don't worry. The most important thing is to get out of here. Shen Xinxiao thought for a while. The Li family had only sent a dozen or so guards, and in addition to the previous battle, they had already suffered great losses. Their current strength might not be able to defeat the garrison. Moreover, there were many experts hiding around Lu Jianzhong. Considering the overall situation, Shen Xinxiao knew that they would be trapped if they stayed to confront them. They would not be able to get out of Guanxi town. Sister is right. If we don't leave, we will all die here. Shen Nanxiao said. Even if everyone left this place together, the survival rate might not be very high. Maybe most of them would die on the way. But once they entered the mountain, it would be the Shun's hunter's world. As for what happened after that, he would think about it later. Whether it was reputation or not, he had to survive first. You youngsters should leave. I'm old and can't walk anymore. Shen Chuanxiu said. His old eyes were filled with endless depth as he looked at the grown-up children around him. Li Zongjio had also come. As a member of the grandson generation, Li Zongjio's performance this time had also surprised Shen Chuanxiu. Shen Chuanxiu couldn't believe it. Zongjio, you are still young. The world is dangerous. Quickly take your people and leave. Your guards are still young. Don't sacrifice them in vain. Shen Chuanxiu wanted to persuade Li Zongjio and the others to leave first. Li Zongjio shook his head. Grandpa, Mom, don't worry. As long as I, Li Zongjio, am here, that puny Guanxi town won't be able to do anything to us. Not only will we not have to leave, I'll take back everything we've lost. Take back what was lost. This was what old Master Shen Chuanxiu wanted. However, in this world, without strength, connections, and background, how could you possibly get back the things that were stolen from you? Those inspirational articles and stories were naturally used to deceive people. There were only a few people who could really turn the tide in their lives. Zongjio, is what you said true? Shen Nanxiao couldn't believe his eyes. This little nephew of his could actually say something so contagious. Shen Xinxiao, who was beside him, was also carefully sizing up Li Zongjio. He was extremely amazed by the changes in Li Zongjio's body. What exactly happened to Li Zongjio? Could it be that the Snow Elixir sect had the ability to transform people? They could actually train the introverted Li Zongjio to become like this. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Li Zongjio was his son. At this moment, Li Gui tactfully came to Shen Xinxiao's side and whispered a few words in his ear. When he heard what Li Gui said, his eyes widened and his mouth dropped open in shock. The more he looked at Li Zongjio, the more he couldn't believe it. Most of the people from the Shen family were also arranged to rest in the rooms of the guardian residence. The injured guards of the Li family were also bandaged. Fortunately, they had brought a lot of elixirs with them. After taking the elixirs, their injuries were healed. It was already the latter half of the night. The entire Guardian residence was already under Li Zongjio's control. It didn't have to be a lot of people. Most of the armed forces of the defenders' residence had already been wiped out when they attacked. Li Zongjio didn't show any mercy when he made a move. The black wind was biting cold. Tang Yuan, who was hanging high on the flagpole, was howling in pain. He wanted to scream in the direction of his family, but he didn't have the strength to do so. At this moment, Tang Yuan also felt that there was something wriggling in his body. When these things entered his body, he felt an unbearable itch. He wanted to stretch out his hands to scratch his wounds, but he realized that his hands couldn't move at all. Oh my God, let me die. Kill me, kill me. This kind of torture was something that even those with strong willpower couldn't withstand. Moreover, this was a rich second generation who only knew how to eat, drink and play. His fate was obvious. However, when Tang Yuan cried for help from above, the people from the Shen family, who were about to go to sleep, could only feel good in their hearts. Such a guy, let him continue to suffer. Even if Tang Yuan wanted to kill himself, it would be difficult. Everyone is in a small building on the east side, and they are protected by 6 guards. Li Gui reported to Li Zongjio. Some of the unimportant people were naturally gathered together. The entire building was also protected. Don't underestimate the defensive power of these 6 guards. Even if hundreds of people attacked at the same time, these 6 guards would be able to make sufficient preparations. As for Li Zongjio and the others, they were in the main hall of the Guardian mansion. Li Zongjio was hungry, so he asked the people in the Guardian residence to cook some dishes and serve them. He really treated the Guardian residence as his own home. He was even more free than his own home. This feeling of substitution was too fast. Shen Nanxiao and the rest didn't expect that one day they would be living in the Guardian residence. Moreover, they were living in the main hall of the Guardian residence from the prison. At this moment, Willow Lane Bright Moon Hotel. A large number of soldiers had cleared the streets. Every house was closed, and some people were directly chased out. As the deputy general of the city guards, he had a long sword. He was also equipped with a long sword. He bent over and jogged all the way to the most luxurious private room in the Bright Moon restaurant and gently knocked on the door. The outside had already been cleaned up completely. However, in this room, there was still singing and dancing. Son of a bitch, who is knocking on the door? Get in here. A fiery voice came from inside the room. Hearing this, the deputy general's heart trembled. Although the consequences were severe, the current situation was even more serious. Lord Lu, something bad has happened. Chapter 137. His upper body was naked, and he was wearing a pair of ordinary pajama pants. Lu Jianzhong sat in front of the table and listened to the kneeling deputy as he recounted the entire incident. Lu Jianzhong's eyebrows shot up as he listened to the story. Who would have thought that someone would be so arrogant as to kill his military governor on the streets? These thieves are actually so arrogant. Sir Lu, the Tang family will send 100 martial masters to join forces with the city guards to take them down. An old man in his 60s standing beside Lu Jianzhong said with a flushed face. There were also many lipstick marks on his skinny body. If one were to look at him like this, it would be unseemly. However, Lu Jianzhong had yet to take out his clothes. How could Tang Jiushan put them on? It was not strange for Tang Jiushan to be here. The Tang family had colluded with the defenders' residence. Today was the day that the entire Shen family would be thrown into jail. Tang Jiushan was naturally happy. He would be even happier if all the members of the Shen family were dead. He had originally thought that this matter would be over. However, it seemed like there were still other waves. Tang Jiushan, who was burning with anxiety, wanted to get rid of these people as soon as possible. Shut up. You. Go and gather the people from Mang Mountain immediately. Enter the city secretly. Give them 4 hours. Although Lu Jianzhong was greedy, he was not stupid. Such a valiant force had suddenly appeared. The young man in the lead had actually dealt with Ma Yuanshan with a single move. How could such a person be underestimated? Since they were going to be enemies with these people, they would have to be fully prepared. You want to let them enter the city? The deputy was obviously a little surprised. He had never expected that they would actually let these people enter the city. This was already a very dangerous matter. It was difficult to weigh the pros and cons of using these extremely dangerous people to deal with a dangerous situation. What are you waiting for? Lu Jianzhong shouted fiercely. He had never been kind to his subordinates. Furthermore, this was Lu Jianzhong's territory. This was Guanxi town. I didn't expect that there would be so many capable people in my small Guanxi town. Interesting. Interesting. Let me meet you. Lu Jianzhong sneered. He put on his clothes and walked out of the door of the private room. When Lu Jianzhong walked out, another figure appeared behind him. Like a ghost, the figure appeared behind Lu Jianzhong without making a sound. He didn't say anything, nor did he do anything else. He just walked slowly like that. Tang Jiushan, come with me. Don't bring anyone else. I want to see if these people have the guts of a bear or a leopard. Lu Jianzhong waved his hand, telling the Tang clan's old man to follow him. All of you stay here. Guanxi town is my turf. Of my territory is my turf. Do you think that I want to harm you? After Lu Jianzhong ordered Tang Jiushan's guards to retreat, the guards looked at each other in dismay. Who knows what Lu Jianzhong's intention is? If Lu Jianzhong is unhappy, it is not impossible for him to make the Tang family suffer the same fate as the Shen family. Looking at Lu Jianzhong's angry eyes, Tang Jiushan was furious. How could Tang Jiushan not know? He could only apologize to Lu Jianzhong again and again. He was still smiling at Lu Jianzhong. Then, he waved his guards to retreat. Lord Lu, what are you talking about? Let's go. The Shen family seems to be rebelling. Haha, is that so? Then they can't escape the death penalty. Let's go. Just like that, the large group of city guards escorted Lu Jianzhong and Tang Jiushan as they headed towards the Guardian Mansion. The guards of the Tang family, who were forced to stay behind, were also at a loss. Their duty was to protect the old man. But now the old man had been forced to leave by someone else. What should they do? Let's go. Let's follow them. If anything happens, we'll act according to the circumstances. Go! Big brother. I heard that they were going to Mount Mang to invite someone. What is it? Don't ask if you don't know. This night in Guanxi town was destined to be turbulent. A large number of armored soldiers swept through the streets like a torrent of steel. In addition to the initial 500 soldiers, the rest of the garrison forces were mobilized from other places. A total of 800 armored soldiers were here. Is there something floating on the flag? Lu Jianzhong raised his hand, and the troops behind him stopped. Something floating? It should be some rubbish wrapped around it. Tang Jiushan was old, and could no longer see the thing in the distance. Shoot that thing down, Lu Jianzhong said directly. He was afraid that there would be an ambush. In addition, it was in the middle of the night. He had to shoot that thing down to ensure that nothing would go wrong. The one who was in charge of the troops here was Lu Jianzhong's butler, also known as the lackey. Archers, get ready. Shoot! Lai Fu, who was wearing a blue butler uniform, gave the order. Suddenly, a series of arrows whizzed out. Swoosh! 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 Hundreds of arrows were shot directly at that thing like a dense rain of arrows. Good shot. As expected of the city guard's archers. Every shot is accurate. Tang Jiushan applauded when he saw that. He flattered Lu Jianzhong in front of him, and hoped that Lu Jianzhong would not make things difficult for him. Now he still wanted to build a good relationship with Lu Jianzhong. Lu Jianzhong glanced at Tang Jiushan beside him. The reason why he cooperated with Tang Jiushan was to bring down the Shen family. Firstly, it was to prove his strength. Secondly, the Tang family wasn't a force to be reckoned with. Comparatively speaking, the Tang family was easier to control. Therefore, Lu Jianzhong chose to cooperate with the Tang family, because the Tang family posed no threat to him. However, after the rain of arrows, the thing on the flag did not move. Instead, because the arrows were stuck on it, the flagpole fell directly towards them. Boom! The flagpole fell 50 meters in front of them. Go, take that thing down and have a look. He seemed to think that he had won the first battle. At least, he defeated the enemy and dealt a heavy blow to them. However, when the soldiers quickly ran to the front and dragged the thing on the ground to Lu Jianzhong, Tang Jiushan's smile suddenly froze on the spot when he saw this scene. The person in front of him was shot to pieces. Even if his parents were in front of him, they would definitely not recognize him. However, Tang Jiushan recognized him at a glance. The person who was shot into a sieve was really his precious son. It was unknown what was going on these days. Most people had children when they were old. Usually, those who were successful in their careers usually had children when they were old. Therefore, they took extra care of their children. Tang Yuan treasured him to death. Everything was done according to his wishes. In Guanxi town, there was almost no one who could stop Tang Yuan. Even if something happened, the Tang family would take care of it from behind. Now Tang Yuan was originally not dead, but now he was shot to such a state. His fate made people sigh. Sir, what kind of thing is this? Do you know it? Lu Jinzhong went up and gave it a kick. When Lu Jinzhong kicked the fat lump of rotten meat, a piece of meat was directly kicked away. Immediately, a group of pitch-black ants crawled out from the stomach and scattered in all directions. This gave Lu Jinzhong a fright. Fuck, what are these things? Tang Jiushan saw this scene and did not dare to admit it. He repeatedly said, I don't know. Chapter 138. Throw this pile of rotten flesh out and feed it to the dogs. Lu Jinzhong said directly. His subordinates immediately stepped forward and dragged Tang Yuan's corpse away before throwing it into the garbage. Tang Jiushan was extremely anxious. However, Tang Yuan was already dead. If they couldn't get through this storm tonight, the Tang family would probably be finished. In comparison, Tang Jiushan liked Tang Yuan more. He couldn't allow anything to happen to Tang Yuan. Otherwise, he would be in deep trouble. Therefore, he didn't dare admit that he knew Tang Yuan in front of Lu Jinzhong. In fact, Lu Jinzhong really didn't know Tang Yuan. Furthermore, Lu Jinzhong couldn't be bothered to look at Tang Yuan's disgusting appearance after being shot. How dare they attack the defender's residence? They are openly defying the dynasty. Charge in. When they arrived at the defender's residence, they saw the two guards lying on the ground. They had been left behind by Li Zongjiu and the others when they had attacked. Boom! Boom! The door was smashed open. However, there wasn't the slightest sound in the defender's residence. Instead, the long passageway that led to the meeting hall was filled with corpses on both sides of the passageway. These were all the guards of the defender's residence. They had all lost their lives. The blood on the ground gathered and flowed onto the floor. In the eyes of ordinary people, such a horrifying and bloody scene was enough to shock them to the core. Lu Jinzhong realized that this matter wasn't simple. However, when he thought about the fact that he was the defender's residence of Guanxi town and had the backing of an expert from his family, he felt that there was nothing to worry about. Not to mention Guanxi town. Even within 100 miles of Guanxi town, there wouldn't be anyone more powerful than the person behind him. Now that his defender's residence had been invaded, how could such a thing happen so casually? Lu Jinzhong's reputation would be ruined in Guanxi town in the future. How bold of you to wait for me here. Send a group of people to search the dungeon and see if there are any fish that escaped the net. Also, with so many people, it's impossible for them to be gathered in the meeting hall. Find these people and bring them out. At the same time, seal off all the main roads of the House of Guardians. When the people from Mang Mountain arrive, we'll kill our way in. There's no need to say anything. Lu Jinzhong acted swiftly and decisively. His subordinates immediately split into 3 groups. In the end, there were only a dozen people who followed Lu Jinzhong into the meeting hall. Tang Jiushan, that shadow-like bodyguard, and some of Lu Jinzhong's personal bodyguards were more trustworthy. The dozen or so people walked into the meeting hall. Originally, they thought that they would see a scene of 2 armies facing off against each other after entering the house. However, before they even entered the house, they could already smell a fragrance. When they really walked in, they were immediately shocked by the scene before their eyes. These people actually. He was actually in the House of Guardians, swaggering while eating hot pot. The boiling aroma filled the air above the eaves and lingered in the entire house. More than a dozen people surrounded the hot pot, eating heartily. There were dozens of corpses lying outside, but the people inside were actually eating hot pot so happily. When they saw Lu Jianzhong and the rest enter, everyone couldn't help but put down their chopsticks. Shen Chuanxiu's gaze was like a pair of eagle claws, directly grabbing Tang Jiushan's body. Tang Jiushan was the person who caused the Shen family to fall into such a miserable state. He was the main culprit. This old fart was actually so insidious. Today he had almost died. When enemies meet, their eyes would be exceptionally red. Tang Jiushan, you're living quite comfortably as a lackey, Shen Chuanxiu said in a deep voice. The rest of the people also put down their bowls and chopsticks, wiping their mouths. Shen Chuanxiu, as a fugitive you killed the guards of the House of Guardians. I'm afraid you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. Tang Jiushan also snorted coldly. He was not afraid of Shen Chuanxiu at all. Both of them were originally at the same level. Now that Shen Chuanxiu had become a prisoner, their positions had changed drastically. Tang Jiushan directly fired at Shen Chuanxiu. Tang Jiushan, do you know that escaping from prison is a crime punishable by death? Lu Jianzhong stood up with his hands behind his back. Looking at the faces of the Shen family in front of him, most of them were very familiar. However, Lu Jianzhong dared to pat his chest and say that he had never seen this young man before. The aura of the young man in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. Even with Lu Jianzhong's strength, there was no way for him to determine Li Zongjiu's strength. This meant that Li Zongjiu either had no yuan qi cultivation or was a hidden expert. If that was the case, Lu Jianzhong had to be careful when dealing with Li Zongjiu. However, at such a young age, even if he had any ability, it would only be within a certain range. He might not be able to cause any waves. You're the House of Guardians? Li Zongjiu said in front of everyone. Then, he wiped off the oil stains on his hands. He casually moved a chair to the front and sat down with a swagger. He looked at Lu Jianzhong in front of him, as if Lu Jianzhong was the prisoner and Li Zongjiu's status was higher. Interesting, you actually dare to act ruthlessly in front of me. Lu Jianzhong's small eyes narrowed as he looked at Li Zongjiu in front of him. Soon, someone moved a chair for Lu Jianzhong to sit down. The distance between the two of them was less than 10 meters. You should be from Wuxia City's Li family, right? You're not afraid at such a young age. However, even if your Wuxia City's Li family came here today, the outcome would be the same. All of you would become wanted criminals. Lu Jianzhong suddenly shouted in a stern voice. As soon as these words came out, the Shen family behind him became agitated. Why are we wanted? We're innocent. Li Zongjiu waved his hand, indicating for the people behind him to quiet down. Shen Xinqiao looked at his son sitting in front of him. At this moment, he felt as if he was being protected. It was as if the area behind Li Zongjiu was absolutely safe, and no one could hurt them. When this feeling appeared, it made Shen Xinqiao's heart tremble slightly. His son had grown up. Although he didn't know what happened to Li Zongjiu, Li Gui had briefly explained the situation. Shen Xinqiao knew that his son was now able to shoulder the responsibility and was no longer a child. You're his housekeeper, right? Li Zongjiu pointed at the person beside Lu Jianzhong. This person had been nodding and bowing to Lu Jianzhong ever since he came in. He was also the one who moved the chair for Lu Jianzhong just now. When he was called out by Li Zongjiu, he was a little surprised. Why was he involved in the fight between these big shots? From now on, you'll be the garrison of Guanxi town. When Li Zongjiu saw that he didn't deny it, he directly said, directly appoint the garrison. Chapter 139. Not only did Li Zongjiu appoint the town guard without authorization, but he also did it in front of the current town guard. Most importantly, Li Zongjiu's current status was that of a prison breaker. Such a crime was punishable by death. Lu Jianzhong found it hilarious that such a death row criminal was giving orders in front of him, as though he was passing judgment on the world. He had seen many interesting things in his long tenure as town guard, but this was the first time he saw someone as self-righteous as Li Zongjiu. Tang Jiushan, who was standing beside Li Zongjiu, laughed heartily when he heard what Li Zongjiu said. He took the opportunity to mock Li Zongjiu. In his opinion, Li Zongjie was too ignorant. Shin Chuanxiu, where did you find him? No matter how useless your Shin family is, there's no need to find a child to make a scene. Haha. Tang Jiushan said. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Li Zongjie looking at him. Tang Jiushan couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. So it's a fool. Haha, take them down. Lu Jinzhong sneered. His fat body was about to take a step back, when he suddenly saw Li Zongjie's figure appear in front of him. What? Lu Jinzhong, who had just stood up, was so frightened that he fell backward. Seeing that Li Zongjie had actually made a move, the black-robed elder behind Lu Jinzhong immediately let out a cold snort. This cold snort was like 1,000 layers of turbulent waves that directly swept towards Li Zongjie and the others. Boom! The surrounding air seemed to have turned into thousands of sharp swords in an instant, piercing towards Shin Chuanxiu and the others. The first to bear the brunt was Li Zongjie. Li Zongjie did not release the slightest bit of spiritual power. He just condensed his own mental strength into a white chess piece. It flew straight ahead. Boom! There seemed to be a divine might gathering on the white chess piece, as it spread out in all directions in front of him. Boom! Power surged. Lu Jinzhong's stool was unable to withstand the pressure of the void, and shattered with a loud bang. The next moment, Lu Jinzhong fell to the ground. However, the most shocked person was the black-robed old man standing behind him. In the blink of an eye, Li Zongjie's mental energy swept over. Boom! The black-robed old man couldn't help but take 2 steps back. However, on the surface, he appeared to be unharmed. However, the black-robed old man's mysteriousness and strength were obvious to all. However, Li Zongjie had been forced to take 2 steps back. Furthermore, it seemed like he had done nothing, yet he was able to force Li Zongjie back. This scene made everyone even more surprised by Li Zongjie. Shin Chuanxiu was shocked. Tang Jiushan, who was standing at the side, immediately shut his mouth. Could it be that these people could not defeat Li Zongjie? If they really couldn't defeat Li Zongjie, then wouldn't the matter of him mocking Li Zongjie just now be part of Li Zongjie's scheme? However, it was a pity that he didn't bring his guards. Tang Jiushan could only bluff on the surface, but in reality, he didn't have any confidence at all. If they really fought, then Tang Jiushan probably couldn't even defeat Shin Chuanxiu. After all, in this small village, some rich people didn't even bother to cultivate. Most of the time, they just let their subordinates do the work. If I have the money to hire people to fight, then why should I work so hard to cultivate? Tang Jiushan couldn't help but take a few steps to the side. Haha, I didn't expect you to be a mental strength master. I have tortured and killed countless geniuses, but I have never killed a mental strength master before. The black-robed old man took 2 steps back, then let out a shrill laugh. Under such circumstances, the black-robed old man's gaze turned sharp. He had tortured and killed countless geniuses. Could it be that this old man had some weird fetish? Just listening to him gave people a terrifying feeling. Li Zongjie couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. How could he compare the number of people killed with the great evil lord? I'm afraid that all the people you've met in your life wouldn't be enough to kill Li Zongjie. You look like you want to eat hot pot. I'll put your head in the hot pot later, and let you eat to your heart's content. Li Zongjie said indifferently. You have a sharp tongue. Die. Black tornado poison palm. The old man let out a low roar. Following the surge of Yuan power, the robe on his body directly melted away. As the old man circulated his Yuan energy, he made people feel a thunderous black wind rush into their hearts. Boom! The old man's palms turned pitch black, and even the air felt like it was filled with poisonous gas. He slammed his palm towards Li Zongjie. Not good, that's the black poison old man. Shin Chuanxiu had been staring at the old man all this time. The old man had been in Guanxi town for a long time, but because he rarely showed himself, his identity had never been discovered. However, Shin Chuanxiu and the others were extremely curious about the black poison old man's identity. Now that he saw the old man attack, he was shocked to reveal the old man's identity. The black poison old man? Isn't that the leader of the 5 poison gang? Shin Nanxiao exclaimed in surprise. The 5 poison gang could be said to have committed all kinds of evil, and had even captured living people to refine poison. This caused the surrounding area to be extremely wary of the Five Poison Gang. It was a good thing that the dynasty came forward and joined forces with the defenders of several towns to suppress the Five Poison Gang. There was even a power from a third-grade city that attacked together and destroyed the Five Poison Gang. However, the leader of the Five Poison Gang, the Black Poison Old Man, had actually appeared in front of them today. This meant that there was something fishy about the incident that day. In order to eliminate the Five Poison Gang, it was said that they had applied for a lot of funds from the dynasty. Now that the funds had been approved, the Five Poison Gang was still active in the area. That bastard, he actually exposed his identity. Lu Jianzhong was lying on the ground. When he saw that the Black Poison Old Man had exposed his identity, he cursed in his heart. However, it didn't matter. If the Black Poison Old Man attacked, only death would await these people. Since they wouldn't be able to live, there was nothing to worry about. Today he would go on a killing spree in the Guardian Mansion. The Black Poison Whirlwind Palm struck out. Li Zhongjie could indeed feel the terrifying power emanating from the Black Poison Palm. This person's strength had already reached the Yuan General level. However, if one were to talk about using poison, the Black Poison Old Man had truly found the wrong opponent. Using poison? Li Zhongjie immediately chuckled. Before his smile had even faded, Li Zhongjie had already raised his palm, directly colliding with the Black Poison Whirlwind Palm. Boom! Pa! As the two palms collided, wind and clouds rose as auras crazily erupted between the two. The Black Poison Old Man stared at Li Zhongjie in shock. If an ordinary person's palm came into contact with his poison, that person would have long turned into a pool of blood. However, Li Zhongjie's palm did not even cause the slightest ripple when it collided with his. Moreover, the Black Poison Old Man could clearly sense that his power had no way of invading Li Zhongjie's body. It was as if there was an iron wall blocking his way. This prevented the Black Poison Old Man's power from invading Li Zhongjie's body. Let's see how long you can last. The Black Poison Old Man's voice was stern. A cold light rose from the corners of Li Zhongjie's mouth. Take a look at yourself first. As his voice faded, the Yuan power within the Black Poison Old Man's body frantically gushed towards Li Zhongjie's body. This was not the result of the Black Poison Old Man taking the initiative to attack. Instead, it was a result of Li Zhongjie forcibly absorbing the Black Poison Old Man's power. Chapter 140. The Five Poison Yuan Power in my body not good. Old Man Black Poison had initially thought that Li Zhongjie was simply courting death. Given his 5 Poison Yuan power, even an ordinary Yuan general would find it difficult to resist if it were to stick to his outer body. If it were to invade his body, even an expert several levels higher than himself would not be able to withstand it. They would even have the opportunity to kill him. The 5 Poison Yuan power in Old Man Black Poison's body swiftly poured into Li Zhongjie's body at this moment. Old Man Black Poison gradually discovered that there seemed to be an endless space within Li Zhongjie's body that was rapidly absorbing his energy, causing his body to feel incomparably empty. Old Man Black Poison gradually began to panic. The Yuan power in his body was no longer under his control. The two were deadlocked in place as their palms met. From an outsider's point of view, it seemed to be a contest of Yuan power. Well done. Destroy him, and I'll give you 500,000 gold coins. Lu Jianzhong was actually cheering from behind. When Old Man Black Poison heard this, he wanted nothing more than to turn around and slap Lu Jianzhong's face. Can't you see that I'm going all out and am at a disadvantage? What are you planning to do by saying well done now? How is this possible? Old Man Black Poison's heart was shaken, but he could not panic at this moment. He needed to calm down in order to deal with this troublesome opponent before him. Hence, Old Man Black Poison was desperately circulating his Yuan Sutra as he pondered. Fine. Since you want to devour my energy, I'll fight you to the end. In Old Man Black Poison's opinion, Li Zhongjie must have relied on his powerful mental energy or some secret weapon to absorb his poison. However, once the poison accumulated to a certain level, Li Zongjie would definitely not be able to hold on. When that time came, he would naturally collapse. When he thought of this, Old Man Black Poison's heart naturally hardened. He retrieved a porcelain bottle from his bosom and poured something into his mouth. What he ate was the 5 poisons pill that Old Man Black Poison had specially refined for his poison arts. If he were to consume a single pill, he would be able to unleash his poison arts within a minute. Boom! Old Man Black Poison's aura suddenly erupted. It was as if a huge vortex had engulfed Li Zongjie's body. This terrifying scene was simply shocking to ordinary people. My little grandson will be fine, right? When Shen Chunqiu saw this, he started to worry. The other party was the leader of the 5 poison gang, Old Man Black Poison. These people were all vicious and merciless. They had at least hundreds of lives on their backs. Every single one of them had committed a heinous crime. This damned sinner had to be dealt with. Who knew that he would appear in front of them and even fight with his grandson? Nothing will happen. I have faith in Zongjie. At this moment, Shen Xinxiao's heart was filled with worry. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't worried. His fingernails were almost embedded into his palms as he clenched his fists tightly. He stared fixedly at Li Zongjie's condition. If this arrogant and ugly old man in front of him dared to hit her precious son, Shen Xinxiao would risk her life to save Li Zongjie. At this moment, Shen Xinxiao could only cheer for Li Zongjie in his heart. Li Zongjie felt the other party's aura suddenly surge. At this moment, he also fixed his gaze and gradually became serious. This was because the aura produced by the other party at this moment was enough to make Li Zongjie retreat. White Dragon Origin Spirit. Li Zongjie summoned the White Dragon Origin Spirit. It attached itself to his body in a state of nothingness to help Li Zongjie. His mental strength also instantly increased. The other party clearly felt that Li Zongjie's mental strength had become stronger again. He immediately let out a low roar. I'll fight it out with you. The Black Poison old man kept trying to retract his yuan power. Li Zongjie's devouring had already touched the Black Poison old man's origin. If this continued, the Black Poison old man would probably collapse. If you want your power, then I'll return it all to you. Li Zongjie sneered. The Black Poison old man didn't understand at first, but in the next moment, Li Zongjie crazily rushed all the power into the Black Poison old man's body. The power that had been absorbed previously was all controlled by Li Zongjie's mental strength. Now Li Zongjie directly spat out this power again. Boom! A terrifying and turbulent power burst out. It directly whizzed forward. The Black Poison old man's hands were originally somewhat red, but when Li Zongjie transferred the power back into the Black Poison old man's body, it directly caused a terrifying change in the Black Poison old man's body. The blood in the Black Poison old man's body seemed to be rapidly draining away. Not good. The Black Poison old man was instantly overwhelmed by fear and hurriedly withdrew his hands. But when the Black Poison old man withdrew his hands and released them, the terrifying power of the 5 poisons had already exploded his acupuncture points. In this kind of forceful competition of yuan power, if one party wanted to forcefully withdraw, they would have to bear the effects of the exploding acupuncture points. The Black Poison old man's speed was relatively fast. When the power rushed to his hands, it had already been completely withdrawn. Therefore, the power of the 5 poisons only exploded on the surface of the Black Poison old man's body. If it had rushed into his body, it would have directly opened a hole in his chest. One could imagine how terrifying it would have been. Bang! Bang! 2 of his arms were blown off. The Black Poison old man retreated several steps, instantly kneeling on the ground. Looking at his 2 broken arms, he was dumbfounded. He didn't dare to believe that with his cultivation, there would be a day when he would leave his broken arms here. How could this be? Who exactly was this young man? How could he possess such power? Even the Black Poison old man had never expected this. What was even more unexpected was Lu Jianzhong and the rest. In the competition between the Black Poison old man and Li Zongjie, it was naturally clear who would win. It couldn't be that the Black Poison old man had blown off his arms, but Li Zongjie had actually suffered extremely serious internal injuries. Everyone present was in an uproar. The black poison old man opened his eyes and turned to flee, but Li Zongjio directly rushed over with his stool. Pa! The stool smashed the black poison old man to the ground, causing him to feel dizzy. A mouthful of old blood spurted out. The black poison old man had never imagined that there would be a day when he would be smashed to the ground by someone with a stool. This was simply unimaginable. At this moment, both of his arms were already broken. After receiving such a heavy blow, if he didn't flee now, his old life would probably end here. Just as he was about to get up and flee, another stool came crashing down. Bang! 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 In front of everyone, Li Zongjio had used the chair to end Old Man Black Poison's life. Old Man Black Poison's body had been smashed to smithereens. Even if his own son came, he might not be able to recognize him. Phew! This old man's bones are really tough. After so long, he still hasn't called for help. Li Zongjio seemed to be wiping away his sweat. When the others heard Li Zongjio's words, they all raised their middle fingers in their hearts. The other party had already fainted. How could he call for help? You also want to die for him, right? Li Zongjio pointed at Tang Jiushan and said. Tang Jiushan was instantly stunned. Chapter 141. Dying for him. How could such a thing happen? Tang Jiushan's son had just been killed by this guy. Although he cursed in his heart and wanted to strangle Lu Jianzhong to death, he had to put on a smile on his face. However, Lu Jianzhong was a garrison guard after all. He was an official appointed by the dynasty. If he offended him rashly, he would definitely end up in a very miserable state. At least in Guanxi town, he had to curry favor with Lu Jianzhong. You actually killed him. What do you want to do? Lu Jianzhong looked at Li Zongjio in front of him. This child was so young, but when he attacked he was so vicious and merciless. Almost every move was fatal. Lu Jianzhong was also very afraid of such methods. He had been a guardian for so long. What kind of people had he not seen? What kind of ruthless people had he not come into contact with? However, it was the first time that he had seen someone as young as Li Zongjio who was so vicious in his attacks. Therefore, Lu Jianzhong was almost scared out of his wits by Li Zongjio's move. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Go and find a jar, the bigger the better. Li Zongjio pointed at the housekeeper, Lai Fu, and said. Lai Fu was a little confused. Why did he bring a jar over at such a critical moment? To make salted vegetables? Lu Jianzhong was still standing. Although he was a little tempted and wanted the position of garrison guard very much, his rationality told him that it was impossible. Therefore, he still stood firmly on Lu Jianzhong's side. What did you say? I advise you to surrender quickly. Otherwise, when the army of the garrison guard arrives, you will die. Lai Fu roared at Li Zongjio. Calculating the time, the garrison guards that were sent out earlier should have found the other members of the Shen family. Why was there no movement until now? Sir, it's not good. The garrison guards have all escaped. They are too powerful. A captain rushed in and shouted loudly when he saw Lu Jianzhong. With Gu Man and Li Gui around, it was more than enough to deal with these few hundred people. After all, these few hundred people were not elite troops that had received training. They were just a group of hooligans. Therefore, with Gu Man and Li Gui working together, in addition to the few Li family guards behind them, they were able to kill these people and make them flee. And most importantly, they had only killed about 20 people. These people ran away in the blink of an eye. This made Li Gui and the others very puzzled. Even if they looked more powerful and fierce, after all, there were only a dozen of them. There were 400 to 500 of them, and only 20 of them died, and all of them escaped. How could such a thing happen? On the other hand, the guards who had escaped felt like 10,000 alpacas were galloping in their hearts. You still have the nerve to be confused. If you want to kill people, then kill them properly. Why did you have to divide them into 5 groups? First, it was 4 slashes that severed the limbs, and the last slash was to sever the head. Everyone died in the same way. Once they were taken down, the Li family's guards would finish each other off. That was why these people ran away. Who would dare to fight with such a person? Normally, they would bully some commoners and collect some protection fees. Now that they had encountered such a situation, who would dare to rush forward? Everyone turned around and ran away. After the first one, there would be a second and a third, and then one after another. In less than 10 minutes, all of them had run away. This captain was quite loyal. He even knew to come and report. Mainly because this captain was quite smart. He thought that if he ran away directly, he would definitely be held accountable. However, if he wanted to continue, he had to stay in a safe place. What kind of place was the safest? Of course, it was the safest place around the Guardian. However, after rushing in, he realized that the surrounding atmosphere was somewhat strange. Why hadn't these people taken down the rebels? Why was there a person lying on the ground? The ground was so dirty. Why weren't they getting up? However, looking at this person's clothes, he vaguely felt that it was somewhat familiar. Fuck, isn't this person the Guardian's personal bodyguard? The one who can directly turn people into a pool of blood. Why is he already down? This captain's inner thoughts were very complicated. When Lu Jianzhong heard this, he angrily slapped him across the face. Fuck you, they ran away. Why didn't you run away? Why did you have to come back and report? Lu Jianzhong's slap directly made the captain a little dizzy. Speaking of which, this captain had some relationship with Lu Jianzhong. This captain's distant cousin was Lu Jianzhong's 14th aunt. But now, this slap directly made the captain's head congested. Shen Chuanxiu and the others breathed a sigh of relief. If these people were all killed and ran away, then the other clansmen would be safe. Otherwise, if the clansmen fell into their hands, this matter would be very troublesome. The situation would be very unfavorable for them. This Li Tianqing is not a good person. He doesn't have any ability. But this Li family's bodyguard is a group of elites. Shen Chuanxiu said. Among so many people present, only Shen Chuanxiu could say this about Li Tianqing. In any case, Li Tianqing was now the head of Wuxia City's Li family. His identity was not simple. But no matter how powerful Li Tianqing was, when he saw Shen Chuanxiu, he had to obediently call him father-in-law. Before Li Zongjiu could say anything, a huge movement came from outside. It seemed like hundreds of people were running quickly. Sir, the people of Mang Mountain are here. A roar came from outside. A large group of people dressed in strange clothes and holding weapons violently pushed away the people in front of them. Get out of my way! Get out of my way! Who are you? How dare you block my way? Many of the bodyguards did not have time to dodge and were directly pushed away. A one-eyed man walked in boldly. There were also some people dressed in strange clothes beside him, escorting him. From the looks of it, he was enjoying himself quite a bit. When the gloomy Lu Jianzhong heard that the people of Mang Mountain were here, the smile on his face suddenly bloomed like a flower. He looked at Li Zongjiu with a sneer. You can fight very well, but you met someone who doesn't care about his life. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. Lu Jianzhong's face immediately changed and shouted at Li Zongjiu. The person who walked in was a one-eyed man. When Lu Jianzhong saw the one-eyed man, he could not help but be stunned. Why are you here? Where's your boss? Lu Jianzhong could not help but ask. He looked at the people around him and found that they were not familiar with those people. So he was surprised. What's going on? Could it be that this one-eyed man was directly promoted after plotting a rebellion? Thinking of this, Lu Jianzhong's heart also sucked in a breath of cold air. This one-eyed third brother was also a person who didn't care about his own life. Most importantly, after so many years of cooperation, there might be some kind of weakness that could be used against Lu Jianzhong. If the one-eyed third brother got hold of the key, Lu Jianzhong would be in trouble. This one-eyed man only had strength, but it was impossible for him to have any wisdom. He was also known as a rash person. Hey, boss is a bit unlucky. This morning he was killed by a kid. Don't you think it's bad luck? The one-eyed man waved his hand and said. But it's also good. This guy was killed, so I'll be promoted. Otherwise, I really won't be able to be promoted. Thinking back to the scene this morning, Xiu Feng was supposed to go out for a mission. But this one-eyed man was in a hurry and missed the mission. It was precisely because he didn't catch up that the one-eyed third brother was able to keep his life. He remembered how shocked he was when he saw this scene from afar. Despite being so far away, He was able to kill the boss with just one shot. That was the boss who was wearing armor. He did not even have time to make a move, and the boss was directly killed. He did not even have the strength to fight back. It was enough to show how terrifying the person who killed him was. And then something even more terrifying happened. The few hundred of them had actually been completely annihilated by the dozen or so guards. Until now, these people still had not recovered. How could these people not care about their lives? Thinking about it, they felt scared. At that time, One-Eyed Third Brother had already made up his mind to not chase after his boss when he saw his boss being killed. However, he still remembered the clothes of the guard and the appearance of the young man. This was to remind himself in the future that if he ever saw this person, he must stay as far away as possible from him in the future. Otherwise, his end would be miserable. Oh right, let me tell you something. You have to be careful these days. If you meet a 17 or 18-year-old kid who looks handsome, smiles with a devilish charm, and has a gaze as sharp as a knife, you have to be careful. This guy can really kill without batting an eyelid. As for Nuonuo, his gaze is just like that. The one-eyed man pointed at Li Zongjio in front of him. Li Zongjio had a faint smile on his face. When he saw Li Zongjio's appearance, the one-eyed man's gaze suddenly froze. Chapter 142. One-Eyed Third Brother repeatedly judged. The young man in front of him was clearly the person he saw this morning on the slope of Mount Mang. This young man had the same indifferent expression and seemed to be in control of the situation around him. There was no worry or fear at all. Even in the face of the huge number of autumn wind troops on Mount Mang, he was still calm and composed. No matter what, since your boss is dead, I will cooperate with you. In the future, I will leave everything to you. Guanxi Town will provide you with firearms. The share will be the same as before. But before that, you have to help me solve the problem in front of me. Lu Jianzhong took a deep breath. He did not see the panic and fear in the eyes of One-Eyed Third Brother. Lu Jianzhong pulled up his pants and shouted a few times, only to find that the One-Eyed Third Brother didn't move. Lu Jianzhong suddenly became angry. Could it be that the One-Eyed Third Brother wanted to increase his commission? This person was really insatiably greedy. However, as long as he solved the problem of Li Zongjio, other things could be discussed slowly. Okay. You win. The share will be changed from 80% to 70%. You will have 10% more. Lu Jianzhong said in a deep voice. Even at this point, the One-Eyed Third Brother still didn't make any move. Lu Jianzhong suddenly turned around angrily. How much more do you want? Pa. One-Eyed Third Brother directly slapped him. In front of so many people, in front of the Deputy General of the Guard Army, he directly slapped Guanxi Town Guard Mansion Lu Jianzhong. This loud slap was enough to wake Lu Jianzhong up. This One-Eyed Third Brother was clearly trying to rebel. Damn you, you want to drag me down with you. I don't even know you. Hee, this little brother. I have only seen him a few times. I don't even know his name. If you have any problems, you can solve them first. We will leave first. One-Eyed Third Brother nodded and bowed to Li Zongjio. This sudden change in attitude immediately startled the extremely nervous Shin Chuanxiu and the rest. Shin Chuanxiu lived in Guanxi Town, so he naturally knew about the Mang Mountains bandits and the Guanxi Town's guard mansion. Even some of the dirty things were done by the bandits of Guanxi Town and Mang Mountain. Sometimes, Guanxi Town would directly sell some information to the Mang Mountain bandits, and the loot would be split evenly. Furthermore, the Guanxi Town Guard residents would often sell military equipment to the bandits of Mount Mang. There was a lot of cooperation between them. Guanxi Town's guardian residence was actually a black-hearted guy. These two were originally in cahoots with each other. How could they betray each other now? Just a few seconds ago, they thought they were dead for sure. Looking at their attitude, it seemed like they were very afraid of Li Zongjio. What had Li Zongjio experienced on his way here that made them so afraid of him? One-Eyed Third Brother, are you crazy? Lu Jianzhong couldn't believe that One-Eyed Third Brother actually dared to hit him. I'm crazy, you motherfucker. One-Eyed Third Brother took out his whip and gave Lu Jianzhong a vicious beating. Lu Jianzhong kept rolling on the ground, screaming in pain. Ah, ah. Boss, look, I'm really not familiar with them. We rarely come here. Today we're just passing by for a meal. Go ahead, go ahead. One-eyed third brother said as he stepped back, wanting to leave. However, he saw a group of guards standing at the door. The person leading them was Li Gui. Li Gui had a long saber at his waist, and the guards behind him were like tree stumps on the ground, sneering at the people in front of them. Behind Li Gui and the others, there were even people from Mang Mountain. However, they were able to recognize that they had arrived at a bandit's lair. Therefore, they all hid far away. In this way, there were only one-eyed third brother, a dozen bandits, and the deputy general of the Guardian army, and some guards in the room. Then there were the people from the Shun family. One-eyed third brother saw the situation, and knew that today's matter would not be settled peacefully. He immediately turned around and stared at Li Zongjio. In the end, the one-eyed third brother's eyes hardened. He clenched his teeth, pushed aside the crowd, and arrived in front of Li Zongjio. With a plop sound, he knelt down before Li Zongjio. I, one-eyed third brother, will listen to your orders without any hesitation. One-eyed third brother actually pledged his loyalty to Li Zongjio. What are you still standing there for? Get on your knees. One-eyed third brother roared at his subordinates behind him. These bandits had seen Li Zongjio's strength before. Now that one-eyed third brother had admitted his defeat, they would not dare to act recklessly. When the time came, not only would Li Zongjio kill them, but one-eyed third brother would also not let them go. Therefore, the bandits brought by one-eyed third brother all knelt down. Greetings, boss. Greetings, boss. Li Zongjio saw this scene and could not help but laugh in his heart. Although the one-eyed third brother looked like a fool, he was actually thinking faster than anyone else. Li Zongjio was able to kill their leader with a single strike. It was definitely not luck. If he could kill their leader with luck, he would not have waited until now. Therefore, if a fight really broke out, one-eyed third brother would definitely die. It was not easy for him to become the boss. One-eyed third brother did not want to lose his life so quickly. Your reaction is very fast. Very good. Li Zongjio originally wanted to kill all of them. But after thinking about it, the situation was different from the past. In the past, he was alone and could kill all of them. But now, he had to consider his family. Not only the Li family, but also the Shun family. He had to consider them. As for the rest, Li Zongjio did not care so much. Tonight, a group of bandits robbed the Guardian mansion, killed the Guardian, stole the treasure and escaped. What do you think? Li Zongjio asked one-eyed third brother. The one-eyed third brother was very smart. When he heard Lu Jianzhong's words, he immediately pulled out a dagger from his waist and stabbed it into Lu Jianzhong's stomach. So what if he was the Guardian? They were bandits. What did they not dare to do? They did not dare to throw away their lives. Therefore, when he attacked, he was very vicious and merciless, stabbing Lu Jianzhong several times. Lu Jianzhong suddenly vomited blood and shouted loudly, "Ah! You dare to kill me? I am from North Puff City Lu family. One-eyed third brother, you dare to kill me?" Lu Jianzhong suddenly roared. He even announced his family's name. I don't care which city you are from. But it was too late for Lu Jianzhong. Even if he reported his family name, he could not withstand the threat of death. Moreover, North Puff City was a strange place for one-eyed third brother. Chapter 143. Until his death, Lu Jianzhong kept repeating that he was from the Northern Puff City's Lu family. They couldn't kill him and so on. However, when he was about to die, the one-eyed third brother had already poked more than a dozen holes in Lu Jianzhong's stomach. Fresh blood continued to flow out and converged into the cracks on the floor. Boss, should we keep these people alive? The one-eyed third brother looked at the remaining forces in the Guardian residence. None of these people dared to move when they were dealing with Lu Jianzhong. When they heard that they were going to deal with themselves, the deputy general was so scared that his face turned pale. With his status, he was at most Ma Yuanshan's right-hand man. Ma Yuanshan was already dead. The Guardian residence was also dead. For the sake of the dynasty's honor, they should kill all these people. This was too fake. No one would believe it even if he said it out loud. Therefore, the deputy general quickly knelt down in front of Li Zongjio. "LLL, my lord, please spare my life. I am the deputy general, the deputy commander Wang Wenbin. I am willing to listen to my lord's orders, even if I have to die. My lord, I can guarantee that the guards will definitely obey my lord's orders." Wang Wenbin immediately surrendered as well. Li Zongjio looked at Lai Fu, who was called out previously. Lai Fu immediately knelt down. It was clear that Lai Fu had absolute control over the situation. If he didn't submit, Lai Fu's only outcome would be death. After that, there would still be someone to replace his position. In that case, he might as well do it himself. Who knows, he might even have a chance to make a perfect comeback. This was an opportunity, but also a crisis in hell. "Since you have surrendered, I will leave the matters here to you," Li Zongjio said. "As for how to solve it, I don't need to teach you." He looked at Lai Fu and nodded. "Don't worry, boss. I know how to deal with these matters," Lai Fu said. Li Zongjio nodded in satisfaction. Tang Jiushan saw this scene. It was simply a scene of flipping a book faster than flipping a face. When they flipped, there was no surprise at all, and each one was faster than the other. When Tang Jiushan saw this scene, he almost had a heart attack and collapsed just like that. It had only been an hour, but the situation had already undergone such an earth-shaking reversal. Now, so many people stood out and stood on Li Zongjio's side. This was equivalent to standing on the Shen family's side. "Shen Chunxiu, you colluded with the bandits to murder the officials of the dynasty. This is tantamount to rebellion. I'm afraid you've already been convicted." Tang Jiushan knew that he didn't have long to live. There was no need to worry at all. These people would definitely not let him go. What the Tang family had done had almost ruined the Shen family's future. Now that the Shen family was in power, how could they let this matter go so easily? Shen Chunxiu laughed loudly when he heard this. If it was in the past, Shen Chunxiu wouldn't have minded living his life openly. But now, after seeing these people's faces, he had to admit that he had to admit it. Even so, he had to admit that these bastards liked to eat fists. If you treated them gently, it would be very difficult for everyone to get along with each other. After all, in their eyes, if you didn't beat them up, it would mean that you weren't strong enough. You might even be afraid of them. That was why they were so cheap. They had to be beaten up from time to time to let them know what regret was, what pain was. Only then would they learn. Today, the Tang family was the one who made a move. Tomorrow, there might be other families. These battles were endless to begin with. Only real blood and fire could make your enemies wake up and realize that you were not to be trifled with. Hence, Shen Chunxiu walked out with Shen Xinxiao's help. "Tang Jiushan, I have never taken you seriously for many years. I have tolerated your provocations. But do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Haha, murdering the officials of the dynasty? So what? Whoever dares to touch the people of the Shen family is going against me, Shen Chunxiu. Even if I have to risk my life, I will make him pay the price. Today, you can forget about leaving," Shen Chunxiu said. In Shen Chunxiu's eyes, Tang Jiushan was already a dead man. Even the Tang family had to be destroyed. At the very least, the Tang family would not be able to recover within 100 years. Shen Chunxiu was able to become the head of the Tang family at his age. He wasn't a simple person. If he was so easy to bully, the Shen family would have been destroyed many times over. However, Shen Chunxiu was already old. He had hidden his edge and no longer showed it. Today, he had to spit out the fangs of the Shen family. "Shen Chunxiu, you will die a horrible death," Tang Jiushan pointed at Shen Chunxiu and said. But before he could finish his words, the two fingers that were pointing at Tang Jiushan were cut off by the one-eyed third brother. "How dare you disrespect our old master? Chop him up and feed him to the dogs," the one-eyed third brother said. He was born a bandit. Now that he had surrendered, he had to show his determination and confidence. This was a rare opportunity to perform well. "My grandfather's 70th birthday is in 3 days. Lai Fu, you will arrange it. Send out the visiting cards. Remember clearly whether you are coming or not," Li Zongjio said to the newly appointed head of the guardian residence. Lai Fu nodded immediately. "Yes, I promise to complete the task." You bandits can escape from the city now, Li Zongjie said. The one-eyed third brother immediately understood. Then, Wang Wenbin and the one-eyed third brother immediately put on a big show. The guards fought fiercely against the bandits of Mount Mang. In the end, they went through a lot of hardships to drive all the bandits out. However, when they arrived, it was already too late. The guardian Lu Jianzhong was already seriously injured and unconscious. After that, Lai Fu, who temporarily took over the affairs of the guardian residence, was also in charge of all the affairs of the guardian residence in Guanxi town. The people in Guanxi town soon learned that the House of Guardians had been killed. However, the state government, which was one level higher than Guanxi town, did not know what happened in Guanxi town. Guanxi town only needed to hand in the financial and tax affairs regularly. Lai Fu was usually in charge of these handover matters, so it was easy for him to handle. He only needed to announce to the public that the guardian Lu was seriously injured. At least for the next 6 months, there was absolutely no risk. As for after 6 months, he could directly announce the death of the guardian residence. Or, he could let the bandits rob again. There were many ways. The next day, everyone also found Tang Jiushan, the old master of the Tang family, who was tied in a ponytail and dragged to death on the official road. They all angrily condemned the Mount Mang bandits for being cruel and heartless. Chapter 144. The members of the Shen family, who had been through a night of turmoil, once again returned to the Shen family's courtyard, which had been sealed off. After all, it was just a small town. The surrounding land was very cheap, so the Shen family's area was much larger than the Li family's. However, the number of people was much smaller. The Shen family's residence was sealed, and the seal was quickly removed. Everything in the family was still there. Obviously, they had not had time to plunder everything. They were worried that something would happen. Anyway, they were in Guanxi town, so there was nothing to worry about. However, Li Zongjie's arrival stirred up a storm. The House of Guardians had been completely overshadowed. All of this was due to the respect he had earned through his strength, and the convenience that came with it. The moment he struck, all of these people had been wiped out. The next day, the Tang family's people were directly arrested by the Guardian's residence. The reason was tax evasion. Anyone could see that this was a very far-fetched reason. It might not even be valid. How much tax could there be in this small Guanxi town for them to steal? Of course, this was just an excuse. The Guardian's residence was here. If they said that there was a problem, then there was naturally a problem. Shen Xinxiao was not worried about the situation in the town. Instead, he was very concerned about Li Zongjie. Li Zongjie must have suffered a lot in the Wuxia pill sect to be able to have today's ability. He pulled Li Zongjie aside and asked about it. In short, his mood would not calm down so quickly. Li Zongjie also enjoyed the feeling of being with his mother. In the 3,000 years of his previous life, besides cultivation, he enjoyed the loneliness and emptiness of the world. Therefore, Li Zongjie cherished it very much. Even if he had to turn the world upside down, he had to protect the Shen family. Li Gui and the others also handed over the congratulatory gifts from the Li family to Shen Nanxiao. When Shen Nanxiao saw so many precious treasures and precious spiritual herbs, he was extremely surprised. When Shen Nanxiao saw the contents of the last box, his eyes widened in disbelief. These are all second-grade elixirs. There were 24 porcelain bottles in the box. In each bottle, there was a second-grade mid-grade elixir. These elixirs were simply the greatest wealth for the small Guanxi town. It was hard to believe that there were so many elixirs. In short, Shen Nanxiao's view of the Li family had changed. "Oh, thank you, thank you. Your family head is too polite. We are all family, there's no need to be so polite," Shen Nanxiao said excitedly. Li Gui, on the other hand, smiled indifferently. At first, when he saw so many second-grade pills, he was also shocked. After all, there was only one second-grade alchemist in the entire Li family. It was almost impossible to refine so many medicinal pills. Even if it was refined, it would probably be kept as a treasure. How could it be taken out so casually? But now it was different. The Li family's backbone had become so strong. The fog snow pill sex Chang Yaofeng also changed his usual arrogant attitude, as if he wanted to stick his face close to Li family. In fact, he only offered a relatively fair cooperation plan, which directly increased the Li family's harvest by several times. It could be said that this success was too easy. In addition, the Li family's current alchemy hall disciples were also guided by an alchemy master like Wang Jing. Therefore, they knew about the process. Wang Jing's strength was very terrifying. In the future, he would definitely become a sharp arrow in the Li family's alchemy hall. Although his talent was not enough, as long as the method was right, there was still hope for him to become an alchemy master. It could be said that the Li family's future had already stepped into the stage of prosperity. This is a small gift from our family head. Our family head still has things to do. He will be here in a few days, Li Gui said. Although he was calm on the surface, he was very happy in his heart. He felt that his face was shining brightly. Was this what it felt like to be respected by others when one walked out with strength? The injuries of the Li family's guards gradually recovered with the help of elixirs. Even some of the guards who suffered light injuries that did not affect their movements would wake up early in the morning, after which they would gather together and train. This hard-working spirit was nurtured under Gu Xuanwu's hands. Even when they were out on a mission, they could not relax. As a result, it brought a great impact to the Shin family. Shin Chuanxiu could already tell that the Li family had undergone some changes recently. Just by looking at these people, he could tell that the Li family had changed. In the afternoon, Li Zongjiu sat on a rockery in the Shin family's manor. A power was boiling in his body. This was the power of the 5 poisons that he absorbed from the black poison old man. These 5 poisons directly brought a certain hidden danger to Li Zongjiu, but Li Zongjiu discovered it earlier. However, the danger was not that serious. He just needed to control it a little. However, it also made Li Zongjiu realize something. The current him was not the evil lord of his previous life. Therefore, some ordinary poisons were very likely to remain in his body. For example, the power of the 5 poisons. If Li Zongjiu did not pay attention to it, it was very likely that the power of the 5 poisons would cause fundamental harm to Li Zongjiu. Looks like I need to refine something to increase my body's resistance to poison. It was possible to be immune to poison. However, who knew if this poison was the 101st type? Therefore, Li Zongjiu needed to train his body to increase his resistance to poison. Only then could he ignore or even be immune to these poisons. Just as Li Zongjiu was trying to force the poison out of his body, a voice suddenly rang out. He found that when the poison entered his meridians, the ancient golden tyrannical body art was circulating freely, and it easily refined the power of the 5 poisons. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjiu was shocked. He never thought that the ancient golden tyrannical body art could refine all the poisons. Thus, it could strengthen his body. Li Zongjiu could also clearly feel that his body's strength had increased. He was shocked. This ancient golden tyrannical body art can be stimulated with poison? Using poison to train. To an outsider, this sounded like something only a fool would do. However, Li Zongjiu had seen many in his previous life. Using poison to train the body. Chapter 145. Li Zongjiu, who had this idea, immediately entered the testing phase. Li Zongjiu had long been accustomed to life and death situations. For others, they might hesitate for a long time and not dare to try such a risky thing. However, after learning about this method, Li Zongjiu directly began. It was normal for ordinary people to hesitate, but Li Zongjiu had already seen through life and death and was not afraid of death. Moreover, Li Zongjiu's alchemy skills were enough for him to deal with all kinds of situations and solve these problems one by one. Therefore, Li Zongjiu was not afraid. A stalk of blood poison grass appeared in his hand. Along the way from the Blackwater Forest, Li Zongjiu had obtained quite a number of medicinal ingredients. Some of these medicinal ingredients had healing properties and auxiliary properties. However, within the Blackwater Forest, There were also quite a number of medicinal ingredients that had toxic properties. The blood poison grass was just as its name implied. Only 1 or 2 drops of the blood poison grass's juice was needed to fuse a person's blood into a solid state and directly kill them. It was a terrifying poison. For ordinary people, even if they saw it from afar, they would take a detour and avoid it. Now Li Zongjio directly put the blood poison grass into his mouth. This stalk of blood poison grass could produce at least 20 drops of venom. With such a huge amount of venom entering the body, even a Yuan Shi expert would not be able to resist the blood poison grass and die within an hour. It tastes terrible. Li Zongjio only felt that his tongue was extremely dry and his mouth was filled with a strange taste. However, the most important thing was that the blood in his body suddenly constricted, as if the venom had frozen his body. The terrifying poison continued to spread into his body. The Yuan power in his body wanted to surge out to extinguish the poison, but Li Zongjio forcibly suppressed it in his body. Then he started to circulate the ancient golden body art. Sure enough, the effect was remarkable. Although the venom in his body had fused with his body, under the operation of the ancient tyrant golden body art, it gradually turned into energy and entered Li Zongjio's body. There weren't many changes on the surface of his body, but Li Zongjio could already feel it. Next time, if he were to consume the blood poison grass again, he would definitely be able to survive. Other than the fact that it tasted bad, there shouldn't be any other problems. After refining the blood poison grass, Li Zongjio opened his eyes and felt the changes in his body. Apart from increasing my poison resistance, my physical body's strength and toughness have also increased significantly. That was easy to explain. Li Zongjio's body would naturally struggle after absorbing the power of these poisons. Through this struggle, Li Zongjio's body would be able to achieve a certain level of growth. However, this method required him to constantly switch to stronger poisons. If he kept using poisons of this level, the effect would not be great. This kind of cultivation method naturally carried a considerable amount of risk. After all, the toxicity wouldn't allow one to coincidentally increase from 1 to 3. It was very likely that one would have to directly challenge the level from 1 to 5. If one couldn't withstand it, needless to say, one would just have to wait to collect the corpse. Moreover, there might not be a corpse waiting for one to collect it. Li Zongjio furrowed his brows. He looked in front of him and said indifferently, "Come out, there's no need to hide." Li Zongjio said. Just as Li Zongjio finished speaking, a beautiful figure also appeared from behind the rock at the side. She seemed to feel a little embarrassed that her hiding place had been exposed. "Cousin Zongjio." The girl who appeared said softly, You are Shini?" Li Zongjio thought for a while, and said the name of the person in front of him. With Li Zongjio's memory, it was very difficult for him to call out a few names. After all, so much time had passed. The person who appeared in front of him made Li Zongjio smile. Shini. She was Shen Nanxiao's youngest daughter. Shen Nanxiao had a total of 3 daughters. The eldest daughter had already married somewhere else. The second daughter was said to have wandered the world, and the third daughter was Shini. She was only 1 year younger than Li Zongjio. He remembered that when they were young, Li Zongjio and Shin Yi's relationship was quite good. After all, the two of them were about the same age and had grown up together. "You're looking for me?" Li Zongjio asked. Shen Yi had been weak since she was young and had a gentle and quiet personality. She didn't have a very active personality, so she must have something to ask of Li Zongjio. The 15-year-old Shen Yi was already a pretty girl from a humble family. Her long ponytail hung down to her waist. Her white and rosy face had a youthful feeling that belonged to a flower. I want to ask cousin Zongjio to do me a favor," Shen Yi said. Yesterday, this little girl was still in prison, but today she was able to come out. This little girl didn't know the specific situation, but she heard that Li Zongjio's cousin from Luoxia City had come here. But it should be the experts of Li family who helped them, so they were able to solve these problems. Shen Yi also knew that only Li Zongjio could help her with today's matter. "What's the matter?" Li Zongjio asked. "My friend Little Flower was taken away by a group of bad people. They are from the Park family, I don't dare to go alone. Park family. In this Guanxi town there were many rich people. In general, it could be considered as three big families. Naturally, the Shen family was one of them. Then there was the Tang family that was arrested. Then there was the Park family. The Shen family's main business was hunting. The skills that were passed down over the years allowed the Shen family to develop in Guanxi town to this extent. The Park family specialized in birds and beasts. However, the market that the Park family targeted was some rare and precious species. After all, rare things were precious. Take me there. I'll help you get it back. Li Zongjio stood up and said. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Shen Yi's big watery eyes immediately shone brightly. It was as if she saw hope in the endless darkness. Okay, this way. Shen Yi jumped down the several meters high rockery with a whoosh. As expected of the hunter family, any little girl's skills were very good. Looking at Shen Yi's excited appearance, Li Zongjio couldn't help but shake his head. He jumped down from the rockery. He didn't call anyone and just went alone. After all, everyone had their own things to do. Moreover, he was just going to ask for a person. It wasn't a matter of confiscating property or exterminating a family. There was no need to mobilize so many people. Chapter 146. In the Park family of Guanxi town. Although there was a storm in the town these days, but it had nothing to do with the Park family. They just needed to close the door. Whatever happened in the town, they could solve it by themselves. It had nothing to do with the Park family. Speaking of the pitiful Shen family, they had to admit that a few days ago, a little girl from the Shen family caught an incredible item. Today, a young master from an aristocratic family from a second-grade city came to inspect the goods and sell them. If they could make a profit from this, it would be a wonderful thing for the entire Park family. That was because the price was simply too tempting. Thanks to young Master Dalu. If it wasn't for you, we might not have been able to get this item. It would be a real waste if the Shen family got their hands on it. Park Dalu said with a smile. After doing this, the elders of the various clans started to think highly of him. Now they were all smiling when they saw the Poo continent. If it was in the past, they would have thought that the Poo continent only knew how to eat, drink, and defecate. But I heard this morning that the Shen family was acquitted and Tang Jiushan of the Tang family was killed by the people of Mang Mountain. His death was very tragic. The people of the Tang family were all locked up in the dungeon. The Shen family seems to have gained power. Will they come and make trouble for us? One of the Park clan's elders said. After all, before this, they were all part of the three great families. The three giants were on par with each other. Moreover, the Shen family was not aggressive. So after a long time, they were not afraid of the Shen family. Because the Shen family's habitual way of dealing with things was to turn big problems into small ones. The head of the Park family, Park Guangyuan, frowned. He looked at the time. What can the Shen family do even if they know about it? Before this incident, they were only on par with us. Do you think they can destroy our Park family? Park Guangyuan said. Seeing that these people were still uneasy, he said again. Alright, don't worry. Do you know who the buyer is this time? Looking at Pu Guangyuan's mysterious gaze, these people couldn't help but look at him, their eyes filled with anticipation. The third young master of the Zheng clan from the second-grade city, Giant Jade Wave City, Zheng Haoren. Now you know the weight of this. Hearing that the patriarch had finally mentioned this person, the few of them exclaimed loudly. It was simply unbelievable. Even when they heard this name, they couldn't react in time. It's actually the Zheng clan of Cerulean Wave Giant City. That's incredible. That's incredible. If I can form a relationship with the Zheng clan. Some people were also very smart and quickly thought of this idea. Blue Wave Giant City. Those that could be called giant cities were those that were in the process of becoming first-class cities. There were only a few first-class cities in the entire Dingquan province. If he succeeded, his status would be completely different. Back then, when he changed his name to this name, he had already expressed his determination. The Zheng family was the #1 family in Emerald Wave Giant City. There was no doubt about that. In fact, the people from the Zheng family were the most famous and the most powerful people in the area. The entire region was the Zheng family's territory. It was just that they didn't care about it for the time being. It was almost impossible for people like them to climb up to such a towering existence. After all, in front of the Zheng clan, they were like ants under the feet of a giant. They wouldn't even know when they would be accidentally trampled to death. How could they squat down and talk to you? But now there was really such an opportunity. As long as this transaction was successful, then, if they could form a relationship with the Zheng clan, casually plucking a strand of hair would be enough to make the Park clan soar. It was simply too exhilarating. It seemed that the opportunity to rise to the top was right in front of them. How could these people not be excited? So no matter what, this transaction must be well prepared. The most important thing is to leave a good impression in front of them. There's only one chance, it must succeed, said Park Guangyuan. He clenched his fists. What Shen family? He had completely thrown it to the back of his mind. After this day, he would settle the score with the Shen family. Just as the elders were thinking about the future, a voice suddenly rang out. A guard of the Park clan came to report. Someone at the door asked their master to go out. Who is so arrogant that he dares to ask me to welcome him personally? Is it Lu Jianzhong? Park Guangyuan's eyes darkened, and his face was full of anger. He was the master of the Park clan. Perhaps he would soar and become the #1 family within 1,000 miles. Who dared to ask him to meet him directly? The guard was quite straightforward. Since he had said so, he would pass on the message. Father, is it that person? Park Dalu quickly reminded him. That person? Hearing his son's reminder, Park Guangyuan suddenly came to his senses. It was indeed possible. Calculating the time, it was not impossible. Yes. You reminded me. Tell me, what does the person look like? The guard thought for a while and said, 17 or 18 years old. Well, he's dressed very simply. There's a cute girl beside him. 17 or 18 years old. Isn't that Zheng Haoren's age? You're courting death. Why didn't you say so earlier? Park Guangyuan stepped forward and kicked the guard away. Then, with a smile on his face, he hurriedly walked towards the door. The few elders of the Park clan behind him also quickly followed to show their respect. Li Zongjio and Sheni stood at the door of the Park clan. If it wasn't for the fact that there was a girl beside him, Li Zongjio would have directly broken these people's necks and taken them away. It was precisely because of this factor that Li Zongjio refrained from making a move and tried to make peace. However, Li Zongjio's tone was not small. Just now, he directly asked the guard to call their master out. Sheni looked suspiciously at Li Zongjio, who was beside her. There was also some admiration and curiosity in her eyes. Just now Li Zongjio had said, "Call your family head out." How many youths could have such a heroic spirit? However, Sheni was also worried that they would not pay attention to them. Maybe they would directly call a group of guards and directly throw them out. In the Park clan of Guanxi town, although there was a storm in the town these days, but this had nothing to do with the Park clan. They just needed to close the door. Whatever happened inside, they could solve it by themselves. It had nothing to do with them. However, speaking of the pitiful Shen family, they had to admit that a few days ago, a girl from the Shen family caught an incredible item. Today, a young master from an aristocratic family from a second-grade city came to inspect the goods and sell them. If they could make a profit from this, it would be a wonderful thing for the entire Park family. That was because the price was simply too tempting. It's all thanks to young Master Dalu. If it wasn't for you, we might not be able to get this item. It would be a real waste if this item was caught by the Shen family, Park Dalu said with a smile. After doing this, the elders of the other clans thought highly of him. Now they were all smiling when they saw Park Dalu. If it was in the past, they would think that Park Dalu only knew how to eat, drink, and defecate. But I heard this morning that the Shen family was acquitted and Tang Jiushan of the Tang clan was killed by the people of Mang Mountain. His death was very tragic. The people of the Tang clan were all locked up in the dungeon. The Shen family seems to have gained power. Will they come and make trouble for us? One of the Park clan's elders said. After all, They were all part of the three great clans before this. The strength of the three great clans was on par with each other. Moreover, the Shun family was not aggressive. So after a long time, they were not afraid of the Shun family. Because the Shun family's habitual way of dealing with things was to turn big problems into small ones, and small ones into nothing. The head of the Park clan, Park Guangyuan, frowned. He looked at the time. What can the Shun family do even if they know about it? Before this incident, their strength was on par with ours. Can they destroy our Park clan? Park Guangyuan said. Seeing that these people were still a little uneasy, he opened his mouth again. Alright, don't worry. Do you know who the buyer is this time? Looking at Pu Guangyuan's mysterious gaze, these people couldn't help but look at him. Their eyes filled with anticipation. The third young master of the Zheng family from the second-grade city, Jadewave Giant City, Zheng Haoran. Now you know the importance of this. Hearing that the patriarch had finally mentioned this person, the few of them exclaimed loudly. It was simply unbelievable. Even when they heard this name, they couldn't react in time. It's actually the Zheng family of Jadewave Giant City. This is incredible. Incredible, incredible. If we can have some relationship with the Zheng family. Some people were also very smart and quickly thought of this idea. Jadewave Giant City. Those who could be called a giant city were those who were trying to become a first-grade city. There were only a few first-grade cities in the entire Dingquan province. If they were successful, their status would be completely different. When they changed their name to this name, they had already shown their determination. And this Zheng family was the #1 clan in Jadewave Giant City. There was no doubt about this. Chapter 147. Shen Yi's eyes widened, and her mouth dropped open. She couldn't be more shocked. These people had a flattering and apologetic smile on their faces. When they arrived in front of Li Zongjio, they nodded and bowed as if they were looking at their ancestor. This, Shen Yi covered her mouth in shock. Li Zongjio stood in front of them and watched. He was also a little surprised. Why were these people so agitated and respectful? If that was the case, it was fortunate that he didn't make a move just now. Since he was so polite, then everyone should be more polite with their words. Ahem. Li Zongjio coughed and cleared his throat. May I ask, are you the third young master of the Zheng family? Pu Guangyuan came in front of Li Zongjio and bowed. He smiled and asked gently, although it was a little shabby to see that the young master of the Zheng family was only followed by a maid. This level of existence wasn't something that the people of the Pu family could understand and guess. Perhaps these upper-class people just liked to travel in a simple and relaxed way. Maybe. He didn't dare to make wild guesses. Of course, he couldn't easily offend them. Zheng family? No, I'm Li Zongjio. This is my cousin, Shen Yi from the Shun family. Li Zongjio shook his head and said, this time I'm here. No? Shun family? Little brat from the Shun family? Pu Guangyuan's bent waist instantly straightened. The expression on his face instantly turned into killing intent. He sized up Li Zongjio and Shen Yi in front of him. Where did this little brat come from? Get lost. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't argue with you. Scram back to where you came from. Hurry up and leave. Pu Guangyuan's face instantly turned cold. He waved his sleeve at Li Zongjio. What a waste of expression. He even felt like he was being played. If he didn't have the mood to receive the young master of the Zheng family, and didn't want to see blood, he would have already taught these two brats a lesson. Then he would throw them out. When Li Zongjio heard the other party's words, his expression instantly darkened. Shen Yi saw that they were not to be trifled with, and could not help but tug at the corner of Li Zongjio's clothes. Why don't we just forget about it? We'll call Daddy over. When Shen Yi saw their ferocious expressions, she was already frightened. Be good and turn around. Li Zongjio turned Shen Yi around. At the same time, his figure flashed and rushed towards Pu Guangyuan. Hey, stop. Pu Guangyuan stopped and turned around. He wanted to teach Li Zongjio a lesson again, but he saw a black shadow smashing towards his face. Oh no! Pu Guangyuan had goosebumps all over his body. At this moment he could feel the stare of death. Bang! There was a loud bang, and the sound seemed to come from inside the body. At the same time, a sharp pain attacked Pu Guangyuan, causing his vision to turn black, and then he fell down. Pa! Li Zhongjiu stomped Piao Guangyuan's head into the ground with one foot. It took Pu Guangyuan a while to wake up. He was actually knocked out by someone. How dare you attack the patriarch? You're courting death. Who are you? The surrounding people were instantly stunned. They stared at Li Zhongjiu and gritted their teeth. They couldn't wait to capture Li Zhongjiu. But when they saw Li Zhongjiu's appearance, they knew that Li Zhongjiu was not to be trifled with. A few days ago, you guys took away a friend of my little cousin's. Hand him over, and I won't kill you. Li Zhongjiu looked around and said. He glanced at Pu Guangyuan, who was still struggling to get up. With a flick of his finger, he sent a stream of yuan energy into Pu Guangyuan's arm. Suddenly there was a paw sound. Blood splattered and a bloody hole appeared. Pu Guangyuan, who was still unconscious, screamed in pain. Ah, next your head, Li Zhongjiu said indifferently. Don't mess around. What friend? What person? You better tell us clearly. Otherwise, how can we hand him over to you? That's right. We didn't capture your people. Don't slander us. Hurry up and release our patriarch. Someone roared. He even held a steel fork in his hand. If there was a chance, he would definitely stab Li Zhongjiu. Li Zhongjiu sighed softly when he heard this. He counted a total of 7 people around him. Pa! He flicked his finger. A streak of essence force directly blasted Pu Guangyuan's head apart. Bang! Blood splattered. In Li Zhongjiu's eyes, it was as if he wasn't stepping on a life, but a weak ant that couldn't be any weaker. Yet he had taken the life of the head of the Park family so easily. I've already said it. It's you who didn't give me a chance. Hand him over, Li Zhongjiu said indifferently. However, these people seemed to still be immersed in the sorrow of their patriarch's death. They couldn't believe that their patriarch died just like that. They were still alive and kicking just a moment ago. Just a moment ago, they were still imagining a beautiful future together. Now they were already dead. This was simply a disaster that couldn't be avoided. You killed our patriarch. You actually killed our patriarch. It seemed that the death of their patriarch was a huge blow to them. Li Zhongjiu shook his head. He sighed softly, and then rushed towards the person closest to him. He punched him and knocked him down to the ground. Bang! The person who fell to the ground immediately cursed in his heart. If you don't hand him over, I'll kill another one. Li Zhongjiu looked at the people around him and said, Great Elder, let go of our Great Elder. What are you trying to do? Let go of the Great Elder. We didn't catch anyone from the Shen family. You better be clear. Who are you? Li Zhongjiu sneered when he heard this. He was still stubborn. I'd like to see if your mouth is harder than my finger. As soon as Li Zhongjiu finished speaking, he flicked his fingers again. A terrifying surge of essence energy erupted, directly blasting this Grand Elder's head into smithereens. Bang! Another puddle of blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. In their eyes, this scene was already the second shock. It was truly shocking, to the point that it was difficult to breathe. Such a scene of blood gushing out was something that had only been seen when slaughtering pigs. You're next. Li Zhongjiu pointed at a person. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. It has nothing to do with me. I'll leave the Park family. I'll leave the Park family. Okay. Just when Li Zhongjiu was about to make a move, suddenly, a shout came from the door. Cousin Zhongjiu, Flowery is not a person. It's a deer. Chapter 148. At this time, Li Zhongjiu had already killed 3 people, including the family head. Originally, Li Zhongjiu had thought that these people's bones were so tough that they dared to ignore death so close at hand. In his heart, he was somewhat impressed. He was only afraid that they had nothing to be afraid of. If they were not afraid of anything, then it was equivalent to them having no weaknesses. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu was still considering whether he should use another method to force them. However, Shunyi shouted from behind. Li Zhongjiu was also surprised. Why didn't you say that you were not a human? Look at how many people were killed by you. It turned out that they were not strong. But they really didn't know. Their ending was really funny. It was impossible for Li Zongjio to admit his mistake. Oh, so it's the elk. Now hand over the elk. What's its name again? Yes, it's called Little Flower. Li Zongjio said indifferently, and looked at the people in front of him. The people in the Park family were already scared silly by Li Zongjio's actions. He broke into the Park family's house and started a massacre. Prepare the ballista. Fire. Suddenly, a young voice came from the house. Everyone turned around and saw 3 ballistas already lined up and aimed at Li Zongjio. The person who gave the order was none other than Pu Dalu. When Pu Dalu saw Shen Yi, he knew that these people were from the Shen family. He wanted to ignore them and hide. This way, his father and the others could say that they didn't know about this matter. But who knew that not long after he left, Pu Dalu saw his father, Pu Guangyuan, being killed by Li Zongjio. In anger, Pu Dalu immediately mobilized the ballista in the family. Now that he saw Li Zongjio stop, he directly gave the order. If he captured the elk, then he would have no chance to make a meteoric rise in the Pu continent. How would he be able to enter Zheng Haoren's line of sight? Even if he became a dog in front of Zheng Haoren, it would be a qualitative leap for him. It would make his entire life very different. Thinking of this, Pu Dalu must kill Li Zongjio. As his voice faded, 3 powerful explosions that were like raging flames could be heard, penetrating through the air as they attacked. Bang! 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 Every sound was like the dull roar of a 1,000-year-old beast. His furious roar caused the surrounding elders of the Park family to become agitated. We should have pushed this thing out long ago. Kill this kid. Even a level 7 Yuan master might not be able to dodge this move. At such a close distance, death is certain. The 3 1-meter-long crossbow bolts were shot directly at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's reaction was also very fast. The Yuan energy around his body surged out and immediately attached to his body, forming a swirling airflow. Boom! 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 The 3 crossbows directly changed direction in front of Li Zongjio. Although it was only a very small arc, the crossbow bolts directly shot in another direction. Bang! 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 One of the arrows hit an elder's head, causing it to explode. It was like a real tofu pudding. One person's heart was pierced. He was still standing in the same place, but there was a bloody hole in his chest. As for the other person, he was shot horizontally by an arrow. Half of his body was directly split diagonally. His intestines, livers, and internal organs splattered on the ground along with his scarlet blood. When this hell-like scene appeared in front of these people, it immediately caused the nearby members of the Park family to retreat in fright. They did not dare to turn around to take a look. Such a scene was simply too shocking for them. This was a living person. What? Seeing this scene, Pu Dalu was shocked. At such a close distance, how could he miss? How could he dodge it so easily? Pu Dalu's heart was immediately filled with anger. Suddenly, a light flashed in front of his eyes, and he saw a figure appear in front of him. This figure was the person he was aiming at just now. What do you want? Pu Dalu suddenly shouted. Li Zongjio sneered, reached out his hand, and pressed Pu Dalu's head on the crossbow. Boom! With a flip of his hand, he sent the person behind the crossbow flying. Li Zongjio pulled the bowstring of the crossbow, and Pu Dalu's head was in the path of the bowstring. His hand loosened. Suddenly, the ballista let out a loud explosion. Bang! This sound was louder and louder than any sound Pu Dalu had heard before. After this sound, he couldn't hear anything else. The last thing he saw was himself rolling around. Everything in front of him was a mess. The bowstring was stained with blood when it returned to its original position. Just now, when the bowstring was shot out, it was like a sharp and swift knife. It directly cut Pu Dalu's head into 2 halves. The part below the nose was still intact, but the head above the nose had already been sent flying. At the cut, one could see the broken bones neatly. In front of these people, this ghastly scene was also filled with great shock. Blurg! The guards of the Park family were already vomiting. Even they couldn't bear such a bloody scene. It was indeed too horrible. In just a few seconds, the scene was covered in blood. The only remaining elder on the scene looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. These people were just imagining a beautiful future together. In the blink of an eye, their stomachs were cut open, their heads exploded, and they were either dead or injured. No, among so many people, no one was injured. They were all killed in one move. It was just that some of them died in a more miserable way. It was hard to accept. This person just barged in and killed people. Wasn't this too much? Wasn't this too arrogant? He didn't even care about the laws of this dynasty. Was this the barbaric era? You're the only one left. Go and bring Flowery out. Otherwise, I'll kill you and go find her myself. Li Zhongjie looked at the last person and said indifferently. When the person heard Li Zhongjie's words, his heart skipped a beat. Flowery, the extremely rare 5-colored elk. It was supposed to bring endless glory and wealth to the Park family. But now, the only thing it brought was a calamity before their eyes. The glory and wealth were only in their imagination and expectations. But this destructive disaster was right in front of them. They couldn't get used to it at all. Chapter 149. In the end, the elder panicked and took out the 5-colored elk that was locked in the cage. Not only did these people tie the 5-colored elk's limbs with chains, but they also tied the elk's limbs. At the same time, they also surrounded the cage with nails. This was because the 5-colored elk was very strong. If they didn't trap it, it might break out of the cage. This 5-colored elk was half the height of a human. Li Zhongjie sized it up carefully. This elk's body seemed to emit a holy radiance. It was actually a spirit beast that could understand human nature. Such an existence was very rare. There were a total of 5 colors on its body. This was already very rare. Ordinary elks were also very ordinary. Now this elk had so many colors on its body. According to records, some of the organs on this 5-colored elk's body had the effect of gathering spirit. It was even rarer to obtain this kind of spirit beast than a powerful meta beast. For example, the black crystal fox that Li Zhongjie found that day was considered a low-level spirit beast. Firstly, it was relatively small. Secondly, its intelligence was not very high. These spirit beasts all had one thing in common. They were peace-loving. Usually they didn't fight. However, Li Zhongjie had heard in his previous life that on this continent, there seemed to be a sect formed by spirit beasts. The spirit beasts in this sect had already cultivated into humans and were peace-loving. Under normal circumstances, their daily task was to eat grass and cultivate. If the bottom line of these spirit beasts was really crossed, they would come out in full force and eliminate all the dangers. This was the scary part about these spirit beasts. It was said that their fighting strength was 10 times more than that of a human elementalist of the same level. Therefore, spirit beasts that were able to cultivate had terrifying strength. This 5-colored elk seemed to have entered the threshold of cultivation. However, it was too young and weak. Now it was trapped by these people. Otherwise, with their abilities, they wouldn't have been able to trap this 5-colored elk. Little Flower. When Shunyi saw the 5-colored elk, she was pleasantly surprised. She ignored the danger and rushed towards the 5-colored elk. When the 5-colored elk saw Shunyi, its eyes emitted a bright light. It seemed to be very happy and excited. What are you waiting for? Li Zhongjie said calmly. The elder of the Park family immediately nodded and went forward to open the cage. At the same time, he removed the chains. The 5-colored elk immediately ran towards Shun-Yi excitedly. He came in front of Shun-Yi and kept rubbing his antlers against the girl in front of him. When he looked at Li Zhongjie, there was a trace of gratitude in his eyes. This elk is quite unusual. Li Zhongjie was surprised. He didn't expect the 5-colored elk to have such intelligence. Li Zhongjie was able to tell that the 5-colored elk wasn't ordinary. He didn't rely on his current cultivation, but the experience and eyesight he had accumulated in his previous life. Naturally, he could see the difference in the 5-colored elk at a glance. Okay, let's go, Li Zhongjie said. Then he said to the elder of the Park family, sorry to disturb you. After all, they had killed so many people. If Li Zongjio knew that this was an elk, then there wouldn't be so many casualties. However, Li Zongjio couldn't be blamed for everything. After all, they had killed so many people. Li Zongjio wasn't the only one who could be blamed. Not at all, not at all, the elder of the Park family actually replied. He was thinking that it was so easy to send people away. The appearance of Li Zongjio had brought him some benefits. It was impossible for him to have a meteoric rise, but it was possible for him to be in charge of the Park family. After all, he was now in the Park family. Most of the people who were qualified to be the head of the family had died. The heavens were really helping him. This kind of thing didn't always happen. It was too bizarre. I'm afraid you can't leave today. A voice resounded in the sky above the Park family. When he heard this voice, Li Zongjio frowned and pulled Shunyi behind him. Then he saw two more figures in front of him. A man and a woman. The man was only 16 or 17 years old, while the woman looked about the same age as the man. However, although the two of them weren't wearing dazzling clothes, one could tell at a glance that they weren't simple. I'm Zheng Haoran of the Zheng family of the Emerald Wave Giant City. The five-colored elk was ordered by me. If you put it down now, I can spare your life. The young man who appeared was about the same age as Li Zongjio, but his tone wasn't small. He actually dared to directly ask Li Zongjio to leave. This was a very arrogant behavior. Li Zongjio smiled. It was really rare to meet such an arrogant person. Just based on the maid beside you, a third-grade origin general? I'm afraid she's not qualified, Li Zongjio said indifferently. His words were full of mockery. He was directly mocking the young man. In terms of strength, he wasn't even comparable to the maid beside him. Zheng family Zheng Haoran. It was Zheng Haoran of the Zheng family. When the surviving elders of the Park family saw Zheng Haoran, they were shocked. After waiting for half a day, the main character had finally arrived. If Zheng Haoran had arrived earlier, they would have been able to sell the elk to Zheng Haoran. Perhaps their Park family wouldn't have lost so many people. Looking at how many people died in such a small place, only a few people died every year. Just the number of people who died in the Park family today was enough to last a year. And this young man named Li Zongjio's aura didn't seem to be suppressed by the other party at all. This made people gasp. After all, the two sides grew up in different environments. When ordinary people heard the name of the Zheng family, they would probably be scared out of their wits. How could they still stand here and talk so casually? They were even extremely disdainful. Relying on a woman? Zheng Haoran was instantly angered by Li Zongjio's words. This Li Zongjio actually dared to insult Zheng Haoran. Who was Zheng Haoran? He was the third son of the Zheng family. Although his cultivation wasn't that amazing, he had already reached the second-grade origin general realm. His martial arts were also extraordinary. In the same age group, how many people could be compared to him? You're courting death, Zheng Haoran growled. The Zheng family of the Emerald Wave Giant City? Li Zongjio shook his head. He really didn't have any impression of such a family. In the current of the world of cultivation, one might start to become the mainstay of the region today. But in the next moment, one would be replaced by others. Reality was cruel. No matter how strong one was, there would be a time when one would be replaced. Therefore, the Zheng family's name probably didn't resound for long. Li Zongjio probably didn't remember it in his previous life. Unless Li Zongjio had personally come into contact with something that was 3,000 years old, it would be very difficult for him to recall something that was 3,000 years old. Don't be fooled, young master. This is a provocation. The maid beside her was smart, and quickly stepped forward to stop him. But at this time, Zheng Haoran was like an arrow that had been released from a bow, and couldn't be retracted. He struck at Li Zongjio with his palm. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.